gang boy is a phenomenon of youth.
Let's get out of here!
He belongs to every race, every creed, and every color. He is a symptom of a sickness in society.
We'll get him tonight.
This Pepper Tree gang now has 15 shotguns, 3 hand grenades, a keg of black powder, and 60 sticks of dynamite. This morning, they blew the top off a palm tree on Palomino Road.
That's the picture. And it's not pretty. These kids are about to get into a gang war that will ruin every one of their lives. And we're going to do everything in our power to prevent it. Place all extra patrols that we have on duty, Captain. Keep these groups from gathering at any location in the city. And Caston, see if you can get the leaders together here at the station. Maybe we can talk this thing out.
They're coming tonight, Danny. They're gonna break up the dance.
Hey, Danny, can I have a word with you?
Don't listen to him, Danny. Too late now. Tell him to see the pepper trees. Shut up. Okay, Lieutenant. I'll listen. It won't do no good.
I know a truce won't solve the problem, but it will delay the fighting. What do you say?
I'll think it over.
I walked around for hours. And then some inner force drew me up here to the dam. In a small, dark corner, my mind had remembered something. Something that would help me to decide. But I couldn't get at it. I tried to think back. To figure how and why I became a gang boy. But all I could think of was that my gang began with poor but healthy kids. And that we seemed to come together because of a battle that each of us was fighting within himself and with the angry world around him.
Get him, Danny! Get my shooter! Get him!
It was a battle I could feel myself losing, even when I was winning a fight.
Come on, knock this off.
Good evening.
Where am I?
Well, you've got to open up your camera, Dave, or we won't see you.
It was open.
There you go.
There I am.
So
hey,
he says.
That's amazing. Hey, hi, me. Oh, let me do this. I can do that. Oh,
Glad you could join us, Dave. And we're expecting Paul McGinley to join us subsequently. Who knows when, but he wanted to come on, so he will be on, I think, a little bit later.
Now, Brian, this is unusual. Is this a Tuesday night? I don't have it. Don't we usually do?
It really doesn't matter. This is pandemic time, so.
Oh, okay. So it's what I mean.
It's just dark out.
The only thing on my calendar, seriously, is the show on Tuesday. I do nothing else. So now I'm all confused. Now wow. Okay, but we are supposed to be on. Okay, got it.
We are definitely on, and we are on from Bridgeton, New Jersey, via Arlington, Virginia, Crystal City, Virginia, I suppose, something like that. So we welcome everybody. We are normally not on Tuesday nights. Paul had requested that we come on, and we did have some things we wanted to hash out, and I suppose we will. Well, the show must go on. So, Dave, I'd like to just make a few comments in the beginning, and then I'm going to ask you to...
Brian, if I seem a little weird, I just had coconut-covered cashews, and they're kind of stuck here. So, if I start picking at my teeth. That's why. But they were really good.
That would be lovely.
I'm trying to get them as a sponsor, so maybe I can get some free ones.
Okay. Always remember your dental hygiene, folks, especially during the pandemic. All right, so tonight, Dave, I wanted to talk about tipping points, and I say that with a question mark, because we've seen this general movement toward distrust of government, protest, and at some point, at least in my mind, I feel that we're going to hit the tipping point, and I don't know if we're there yet, because I don't know if there's enough time, because we have other issues besides George Floyd, though that is the meteor right now, it seems. But what I'm really going to ask you is, number one, will this event, this George Floyd event, keep people in the streets? Because it seems like they're there for good right now. And is there some type of incorporation of some of the other issues that we're dealing with the Republican Party and Trump? And not just that, we have global warming, we have violent capitalism, we have the Brazilian rainforest, the Amazon burning down, we have problems in Siberia, where we also get a lot of oxygen. So what I'm basically asking you is this going to be incorporated with the other issues? And do you think this is the tipping point? Can we make the Republican Party and Trump politically sterile from this situation?
Brian, could I hold that answer for 10 years? Of course we don't. No.
Well, that's our show tonight, folks. We'll be back in 10 years.
And we're done, and we're out. I'm going to eat some more coconut covered cake. Okay. Look, I have to laugh. I'm laughing at me, like I'm some kind of expert, right? I don't know a damn thing much, but I studied a little bit, and I'm down here, and it's kind of hard not to study it. All right, so what happened? Well, let's back up, Brian. Let's try to figure out what happened. Well, I would start honestly, with the Republican primary. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there. I know people love to correct me, and I throw numbers out. I try to be accurate. I make fun of Trump when he's so inaccurate. I believe there were 17 Republicans running. Now, we're not inside Trump's head, but I honestly believe this. I've been told by some people this who are kind of in the know. Donald Trump did not enter the race to be president of the United States. He entered the race to do two things. He sees himself as a brand, the Trump brand. We know that. How big gold can you put, how big the letters can be. It doesn't seem to bother him that half his shit or 3/4 of his shit or 99% of his shit fails. He just turns around and does something else with it. So he's going to incorporate that brand. But I think actually something did happen. I think he kind of thought he found his niche as a reality star. I mean, think about it. He's playing this big executive that he wanted to be in real life and was to a certain extent, right? But he's playing on TV, and now people are really liking it. They're loving him, right? I mean, not loving him, they're loving the show. Now, I would question how anybody loves the show. You're fired. Now, I'm not going off on a tangent here. I think that one of the things that I've seen in my 68 years on the planet is we're getting meaner spirited all the way around, with humor, which a lot of things, okay? And certainly, I'll take part of that. I mean, our generation, but I think we were mean spirited trying to go in some direction. Now, when you see shows like Jackass and any reality TV, listen, I don't want to burst anybody's bubble out there, but reality TV is not reality. It's scripted and it's you should call it non-reality TV, right? But anyway, so Trump does this. Now, the second thing I think he wanted to do, and I think he's demonstrated that in his presidency, I think he understands very well the power of television. They talk about Ronald Reagan being the great communicator. Okay. Well, I'm going to suggest, a few changes. Presidents change according to the media. In terms of John Kennedy defeated Richard Nixon in 1960 for numerous reasons. But I guarantee if there hadn't been TV, Richard Nixon would have won. Okay. FDR accommodated to radio. Barack Obama. And it's interesting, as much as I like him as president, and I think he's a great president, as a journalist, I have a problem with him. It was going to happen anyway. He's the first president that learns you don't need the newspapers. You really don't. If you take to YouTube, and that was his format, if you go back and look at it. And here comes Donald Trump, and he says, wow. And I think what Donald Trump wanted to do, and again, somebody has to go verify this, but I believe he told me, he sent people down to do preliminary filing to create a new TV network. Of course, the star would have been Donald Trump. And all of a sudden, he's running for president. And, nobody gave him much of a chance. I know I didn't. But then something interesting happened. And it happened to the media. And the media loves a great story. And later on tonight, Brian, I would like to address that if we return to it. I want to ban the word media, and I'll explain why. But up till we do that. So the media. Now, really, what it was TV and the Internet. Newspapers, too. They're all guilty of it. Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not, is a story. And the reason is a story is because part of news is the extraordinary, the out of the ordinary, the newness. So if you go back and you look at his campaign, and we're getting there, we got to go all the way back. See, what people want to do, Brian, is I want that answer right now, right? Well, you can't. I mean, we could go all the way back in his childhood. We're not going to go back that far, right? We're going to say something. So all of a sudden, and I should, but I believe this is true. He threw, not a Hail Mary, but he saw he's going to run okay. And I'm going to guess, I don't know this, but if you look, who's the one person he's been with the whole time? Stephen Miller. That's the only one who's lasted.
Yes,
that's the
Stephen
only
Miller,
one who's
definitely
lasted. So you have to assume one of two things. Either Trump really does admire, respect something, or Stephen Miller has compromising pictures on Trump, which I don't think Stephen Miller has. Or, so when he did the Mexican thing, which I think, was the first moment when he we thought, those of us who thought he was a joke, thought he would implode. And that's kind of when he exploded with people, because he tapped into something. Now, what did Donald Trump have that no other candidate had? He had no experience. He had no political ties. If you didn't know anything about him, you would have thought, here's a great businessman. Obviously, you found out later he had sex with porn stars. A lot of men like to have sex with porn stars. You find out this lifestyle he has. He has gold. He's ostentatious. But, so that was part of it. But I think more of it was America was desperate for an outsider. And so all of a sudden that picks up. And then when the ultra-right and the Republican Party had been headed since Richard Nixon to the right, more right and more white, those two terms go together. Well, then suddenly they're on board. And then I'd have to go back and look at everything. But at some point, I don't know if it's a speech he made or you look around, he was there. The evangelicals jumped on board. And what they said was, this is our guy. This is our guy because he's, the crazy ones. The real nutcases think he's, Jesus Christ incarnate or the sign of whatever. But they're saying he's going to protect us because really, if you talk to the evangelicals, a lot of Christians, they believe they're under attack. They really do. They really do. Now, how you can believe that, I have no idea, but they do. So now he's got them on board. The haters. And all of a sudden, and I was surprised by this. I've had this discussion a long time. I knew there was hate out there in America, but not to the number that I thought. So now his campaign picks up steam, right? Now what he does next is he tapped into this, I hate to say the word zeitgeist, but this crassness that's come across. Let me give one example, okay? I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying this. When I was young, I went to church, and people dressed up for church, right? Now, let me back that up. When my grandfather went to a baseball game, they wore suits and ties to the baseball game. Well, they say, Dave, what the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about a loosening, a loosening of formality, which is not necessarily formality for formality's sake, isn't a good thing. So all of a sudden, then we get a loosening in language, right? All this stuff. And so suddenly he starts giving these zippy names, right, to people, the opponents. And they're kind of stunned. And the media, I keep coming back to that.
Well, that's what Howard Stern did. He took it right out of the textbook of Howard Stern.
Well, because he and Howard were friends at that point.
Right, at that point.
And he also, you know what else? You know what other playbook he took it out of, Brian? Vince McMahon and the WWE.
Right, it has a connection, but it was effectively done. Well, that's right. When you have the names of the WWF superstars, yes, they had a name. But it was Howard Stern who pulled that and became so popular.
But I'm just saying,
Baba Booey. It worked.
It worked because, look, I've always been amazed about this, but I understand it. It's not about who you are. It's how well you're known when you start, right?
We have an interjection from Gary here. He says he doesn't want a history lesson.
Gary, unfortunately, if you'd listen in history, I'm going to give one anyway. See, this Gary's saying that as a joke, I hope, because Gary's not dumb. But the thing is, Gary's kind of playing it off on this idea that we want to know right now. You can't. You got to go back and look. So now Trump, all of a sudden, he sees that it's working. And now he's a viable candidate. And he probably said to himself, what the fuck do I do now? And he looks, and Stephen, if Miller's here, he just keeps going and keeps going. Go back and look. He pushes the envelope, right? And all of a sudden, more people on board. What's the next thing people say? Well, I don't care what he says what he thinks. You heard it. I heard it. Everybody did it. And politicians at the time were getting too into that soundbite. I can't say that, but I've attended one of my favorite places, probably never be again, but National Archives. 2 or 3 times a year, they get old congressmen in, retired congressmen, and they will all tell you, I can talk now, I can't talk there. Meaning that you have to be so careful what you say, what you don't say, what you do. It's all about sound bites. And Trump's very good at sound bites. And they said, well, he said, okay, my question, and I asked it in Atlanta, the rally I went to people, I said, yeah, okay, he says what he thinks, but what if what he thinks is wrong? Or what if, they weren't worried about that. They were looking for something fresh. So now he's got all the people, and I was conversing with one today online, basically who said, it's all bad. Trump's good because he has no ties. Okay. CBS comes out, the chairperson says, look, may not be good for America, good for us. Do you know that he got, if you were to take the amount of articles written about Donald Trump, the amount of TV time, he swallowed everything up. Well, now people are sitting home and, well, they wouldn't, all of a sudden he's in everybody's faces. So, one by one, right? Knocks off, jab, knocks off. And who's one of the last people standing? Ted Cruz. Because they were going to split the evangelical vote, right? And then eventually, suddenly, he's the nominee. Now, nothing against Mrs. Clinton. And we're going to talk a lot lot about this tonight.
Let's not forget the point, though. Again, I know I said a lot, but I'm saying, how is this all going to relate? Is there a tipping point to what's happening right now?
Brian, yeah, you're getting impatient.
Yeah. Okay.
America is impatient. Do you know why you're impatient, Brian? Do you know why America's impatient?
Because we're sick and tired of it.
No, Brian, no. Why you're impatient is you have been brain trained to have 30-minute story, gives you the whole story, and you still have time for 4 commercials.
I'll admit it.
What?
I'll admit it. Sure, I like getting to the.
Still, I'm not saying I'm not. But what happens is that's why we end up with Donald Trumps.
Well, there is Occam's razor too, we can look at it both ways.
Probably use. I see you haven't shaved for a while. Use somebody's razor. Right, so,
now we're getting ad hominem comments.
now you get.
Okay.
No, ad hominem comments have to be directed toward a human. I said about you. Okay. What happens, Brian, is this. You can't start there. Now, the key element came in. What was the key element? Republicans said, that's the guy we want. Now, I'm going to guarantee, I can't swear this, but please, if anybody knows a senator out there, I'm going to say every sitting senator was horrified with Donald Trump, and still is today. But they realized we're going to use him. So now we got your GOP party in, right? Then we put up Hillary, and I hate the term perfect storm, but it was. Hillary running as a woman, right? Against a man who doesn't respect women. Hillary running or distancing herself, depending, from Bill, That was an election on Clinton to Bill. And in my lifetime, I've never been surprised by a presidential election. Not because I'm good, but they were also clearly obvious. Now we get to what you want. Donald Trump didn't. I've said it before, but it's not really. He didn't steal the Republican Party. They were moving toward Donald Trump's way, but they got a guy now, and he's got a following now. It would be interesting to know, Brian, and I'm sure maybe somebody has a statistic. How many people voted for Donald Trump who had not voted in at least 10 years? Because that number is very high, right? And yeah, it would be, because you can see that. There's no way they were in Middle Pennsylvania, in places they don't normally vote, right? Because they got a guy now. They got a guy. He's not part of the establishment. Those of us in Washington, I mean, you have to go outside this beltway. You get in there, man, we all think we're all that, right? You get outside, people hate us. They hate us. And that's fine. I understand why. Now, Donald Trump was not a leader. He was surprised to be president. He put together a team, but he doesn't know anything about putting together a team, right? So he puts together a god-awful team. But, of course, being Donald Trump, I only hire the best people. They were shit from the beginning. All right, most, not all of them. And those that were any good left. So you just wait, right? Who's that, Gary?
He said, now you're up to 18 minutes. He said...
Hey, Gary, you've never seen anything 18.
He said a special airing to hear Tuesday's material. Good job. He's killing you.
You know what? Take that into consideration. Gary doesn't even have a place to go tonight. Why should I worry about Gary?
Second ad hominem in the car.
Gary's probably Gary's at a whorehouse, probably somewhere. He doesn't. What does he know? Anyway, you actually take that shit seriously. I mean, who cares about what
Gary's fantastic. This is like the Gary Peacock show.
Gary is to human beings what Donald Trump is to the presidency. All right. So let's see. Let me slow down for Gary, because Gary doesn't get stuff all the time. So Brian, you're just demonstrating my point. And so is Gary. You know why we're never going to know shit? You know why? You really want to know? Yes or no?
I'm here.
Well, you got to say yes.
Well, I know if what you're saying is because we don't pay attention to history. I mean, I guess that's the general point, but...
No, it's not no, that's not the
general
point.
We're impatient.
What?
We're impatient.
We're impatient people. And what do impatient people do, Brian?
They go to McDonald's to eat.
Fine, but what do? They rush to do everything, and when you rush to do everything,
they fuck
do you
it
make
up.
Less errors or more errors?
Well, yeah, okay, Dave, I understand what you're saying, but there are two sides of that. Like early bird gets the worm, and haste makes waste. So you've got two sides. Well, I don't know that it's black and white here, Dave.
You don't have a brain big enough to pick the one that makes sense?
Well, it's not that simple. There are times when you have to be expedient. For example, when there's a television show and there's only a half an hour, you're going to have to make your point at that time. And yet I understand what you're saying is if you just quickly do these sound bites, it's not going to work. I get that, but I see where Gary's coming from. He's now, is he impatient?
Gary, why don't you go get a date or something? Do something like that. I never worry about that. Bro. I never worry about that because the idea of it is, I'm not saying, I just know that we move too quickly, and we don't want to. It's not really history. It's just a fast. That was a mistake. The vote for Donald Trump was a mistake. Donald Trump's running was a mistake. And guess who's president, Brian? Who's president?
He is our president. Yours and mine, no matter what
here's what happens.
Feel about him.
Exactly. And he has been hit and has caused problems more than any other president.
He is the worst president. He's an abomination.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what he's been hit with. All right? Let's just assume what he came with. He came with a country that was racially divided. Did he do anything to heal it? Did he?
No.
Okay.
He put gasoline on it. That's what he did.
We're not talking about that, Brian. We're talking about what did he do? He comes into a country that has great economic inequality. What does he do? He gives breaks to the rich.
Right.
Look at, I know I'm just talking. I know you don't agree. I'm just saying. But this.
No, I agree. He gave, I was just going to say, he gave $511 billion to whomever. We still don't know who they are.
America was a well-respected nation basically, except by our enemies. Are we a well-respected nation again? Over in other places, we are a laughingstock. Donald Trump. Now, I don't see this the way people over in Europe see it. They don't think America will regroup possibly ever. They see somebody filling the vacuum. The monetary vacuum.
I think, Dave, I am going to interject on this. This is just my opinion. But if you look at what's happening with the George Floyd situation, it's transcended this country. Well, it's happening over there. This is why I'm saying, is this a tipping point? Because it almost seems like a world movement.
That's such an obvious question. It looks like.
Well, no, but we don't know. See, that's the thing. We don't know that it's going to continue.
We won't know. We won't know until we know. And you know when we'll know? When we know. Okay? I mean,
right. I get that, but at least we should discuss it to make sure we cover all of our bases here.
We're doing it at a pace that should be done. We're not doing sound bites. We're not doing quick tonight. Listen, if they want quick, there's a time for quick.
Gary says he wants a special report. Okay.
Tell Gary to get a goddamn life.
He hears you. You don't have to tell me to tell him. He hears you.
I don't talk to him anymore.
Gary, I'm trying.
I'm having so much fun.
Yes.
Now.
Okay.
Now, here's what happened. Scott Adams predicted Trump. Scott, if you did that, my hat is off to you. Okay. But what happens is, now, I've been joking. Now we'll get serious. Is this a tipping point? Of course we don't know. But here's what happened. Come back to I hate that perfect storm, idea. But you've got a country divided, correct? Divided along all these lines with a president who's in 3.5 years has done nothing. If anything, has made the situation worse. And Brian, it's the most intelligent, and not to say intelligent things all the time, and not because I didn't think of it and you thought of it first. I really hadn't thought of this.
Here's Paul, by the way.
Hey, Paul, you got to break us up. Brian's being stupid tonight.
No, Brian's being right tonight.
but what happens is, and Brian, I don't even remember if I marked it down. Brian said something. Okay. The timing. Think about this. If what had happened to Mr. Floyd, and what happened to Mr. Floyd, he was murdered by an officer of the law who's supposed to stop murder, not commit it. America was a powder keg, literally waiting to go off. And everybody says George Floyd was a catalyst. I think George Floyd was a martyr. I don't think he was a catalyst. I think the catalyst was the officer who decided to kill someone with their knee and do it.
Right. I mean, you can say George Floyd didn't know going into that day that he was going to be a catalyst. And so I say it's a meteor. It's like John Brown. He was the meteor.
Why? And you got to ask yourself this, Brian. Not you, but everybody. I thought, and wrongly, when young children were gunned down in Sandy Hook, that America might move away from weapons, and they haven't. I did think when the killing at Mary Stoneham High School in Broward County, Florida, I did see something there. And you notice we got activism out of there. So all of a sudden, activism is building. Now, who are the activists? For the most part, they're either those of us who are really, really old, or they're a brand new generation. Would you agree, Brian?
Yes.
You don't see many middle-aged activists. I'm not putting down middle-aged people. They're doing other things. Well, these young people are different. Not different. They've lived in a different world. They can't go to school safely. They see that the environment that we may, a lot of them do not expect to be alive, right? With the economic inequality, Black Americans realize, hey, how much better off are we than we were in 1968, right? Martin was killed, etc. And so what happened is, I think what you're seeing, when you say a tipping point, you're seeing hopelessness and frustration and concern with the president, who will go down in history, not in Dave Price's book, will go down in history as the worst president of the 45.
But it's even more than that, Dave. It's even more than that. And I know you're going to agree with me, but I'm just saying, and this is why I said at the top of the show that, you have so many crises going on. You have,
There it is, Brian.
the Amazon, again, the Amazon's burning down, Siberia is burning. We have almost total economic collapse. We have the pandemic. This is why it's different than when you grew up in '68, where you had the Vietnam War.
No argument.
Now we have everything, and we have a group of people, the African American populace comes out and they protest. But this time, finally this time, the white crowd comes out, the young white crowd. Now we have people together. And that is why I'm saying this may be the tipping point, something that can change the world instead of '68. Now we really have something.
The problem becomes with assessing a tipping point is that you won't know it till it's passed. Now, how does this become a tipping point? Now I can answer very quickly. One is enough of those people, enough of us Americans vote Donald Trump out. Point one. Simultaneously, enough people realize, Brian, which was your point, that it's not just Donald Trump. It's the whole Republican Party, the whole National Republican Party. There are enough people that we need to vote them out. Don't need to vote everybody out, just enough to get a hold of the Senate, right? Now I say we, and say, oh, you're a Democrat. No, I'm going to say the good guys. The good guys are anybody who's against Trump. And, that's the way it works. Now, that's part of it. But that's not the tipping point yet. It's a tipping point for one election. And then if we see progress, continued progress, and even better, if we don't have to take to the streets to see it, then we'll look back on this. Now, the best way I can say it is Rosa Parks will go down forever as a tipping point. And she really wasn't that big a tipping point at that point. But looking back, we see that. Two names I'm going to submit, Brian, the history 100 years from now will say, one, and I'm going to test you, one was a quarterback for the San Francisco.
We know that. We know, right? I know.
Colin, right? Kaepernick. And the other will be George Floyd.
Now, you said 100 years from now. Here's where I'm going to defend Gary, and not so much in asking you to speed up when you speak, or not speed up, but
I know what you mean.
Okay, but what I'm saying is because of these situations like global warming and nuclear, this and that, we may not have enough time to get to that tipping point.
Brian,
this is not '68.
Okay, does Donald Trump see us does Donald Trump see any change other than he should have more power? Do you think?
He wants no change. He wants status quo for himself.
He wants a change. He wants to have a fascist authoritarian government. He's not intelligent enough to debate it from those terms. What he wants is his way. Spoiled child is
exactly. He wants what he wants.
When he wants it, and he doesn't have use for anybody else.
And he's gotten it pretty much so far.
Now, one show we'll have to devote to why Joe, we shouldn't even have to say it, but Joe Biden, is he perfect? No. And that's one of the problems usually on the left. Everybody on the left wants perfection. Everybody on the right pretty much wants utilitarian. Think about this. Donald Trump had what? 6, I think, elected officials, or 7 on his team, going in. Now everybody's on his team because he won. So the first thing is to win, right? Now, if we win, do we have a better? Let me ask you this, and you're answering for everybody.
I'm going to let Paul answer this one, okay? Paul, get ready.
All right, ready, Brian. Paul,
can you hear us, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, real quickly, this is Paul McGinley, a good friend of ours from Toledo, Ohio, a former college roommate of mine many, many eons ago. Paul, it's great to see you. I did call you twice around.
I'm from the Reality Report.
Pardon me?
Yeah, I'm from the Reality Report. We're just.
I did call you, Paul, prior to going on.
Hey, have you asked Dave's permission to have that icon of yours sticking into his picture there?
I love that. I have no problem with that, Paul. Paul, good to see you as always. Now,
not teasing, but Brian, what's the question?
This is kind of weird because we all.
He's going to ask the question. He was going to ask me, and I'm going to let him ask you.
I said.
And you have my permission, Paul, to go on for 42 minutes.
Hey, I can't help it if I'm more naturally. You're impatient.
I'm glad you didn't teach me the alphabet, Dave. I wouldn't get to Z
Dave,
till
you
I
know,
was 70.
I was thinking
Hey,
about
Brian.
Just kidding. It's a joke. Don't take it personally.
How many letters are in the alphabet, Brian?
Okay, 33 in the Russian alphabet.
Well, there you are. You
You
idiot.
know, I'll get Gary Peacock after you here.
I could care less. Gary lives with me periodically. I love Gary. It's just Gary's impatient too.
Dave's got Gary all bribed up.
Yeah.
Here's what we got, Paul.
Okay, ask him a question.
Jesus Christ, Brian, I'm the one to interrupt. Don't you interrupt me. I interrupt you. You know, what happens is this. You know, we're a divided country. That's why we got this show, right? And you and I actually had kind of around this discussion a little bit today. I mean, I don't know. Somebody wrote on my page, why the hell do you talk to those people? You're not going to change their minds. We're not, okay? You got to outvote them. It's that simple. And then we start. But Brian, it's really hard to say. I mean, so I ask you, you can think it's a tipping point, right? On anything, correct?
I'm going to actually say I don't think it's a tipping point. I think when he cheats, I'm stepping far ahead. I don't think it's going to be a tipping point until November when they actually cheat on the election.
Well, that's what I was trying to say. Okay. Anyway, Paul, let's you and I have an intelligent discussion, okay? What do you think? What do you make? What do you make of what's going on right now? And by, you know, what does that mean? Okay. This is different than a year ago, right? But Donald Trump was president a year ago. This is different than Christmas celebration. So different than, you know, then. This is different than January 7th.
Different from Ferguson. Different everything. Even though that was about Black Lives Matter as well. It's different.
So Brian's question, I've been trying to hold off till you get on now, is it's a good question, and everybody's asking it. It's two parts, I think, but I think, Brian, it is two parts.
And by the way, Mr. Bill Waterman, your favorite Bill is on right now.
Hey, Bill, I like you so much better, Bill Ziefel, you can tell him that. Okay. Listen, hey, Bill Waterman, here's the thing. There's two things. Is this a tipping point? And we say, we're going to use the word here, tipping point, as something different, because we don't know tipping point. But then the question becomes, why is this different? So, Paul, you said it very, you know, Ferguson, it's not anything else. It's not the poor young man in Georgia that was gunned down by the two vigilantes. Could have been that one, right? It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It's not the fact.
It's not George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. No, this has gone bigger now, okay?
So the question becomes, why do we all think it? I have my thoughts.
Well, first you have to ask yourself, I don't know about this tipping point thing, but first you have to ask yourself, are these protests going away? And it is clear to me that not only are they not going away, but they will intensify and broaden. We have what started out as a plea for greater cop understanding and empathy with the black community has now tapped into all kinds of hidden anger and frustrations that go that are actually reach multi-races. And now what we're seeing is we're looking at a bleak future post-COVID for millions of America as far as jobs and economic potential, which were already looking bleak prior to COVID. So what have we seen in the last few months? We have seen the U.S. government, Treasury, and Federal Reserve focus their efforts and dollars into bailing out and rescuing Wall Street, rescuing hoteliers,
farmers,
all kinds of businesses, cruise lines even, airplanes, airlines, Boeing. Many of these companies don't even pay taxes. Many of these companies, particularly cruise lines, are domiciled offshore, and really, we don't really see the profits. They don't pay taxes, or if they do, they're minimal. So they've seen a sudden $4 trillion hike to our budget deficit, and what they got out of it was 1,200 stimulus after extreme haggling and public haggling in Congress between the two parties to decide when and how much would be dispersed, and then some unemployment help. Okay, so that was a one-time shot, a one-time bolus of 1,200 per person. Okay, now that I think has led to a lot of anger, a lot of simmering anger. So you're right. I mean, George Floyd is worth more than just being termed a spark, but we're kind of saying that he is a kind of his death is proving as the last block that that tipped over the whole building. Okay, it's just the beginning. It's moving on. It's broadening into a more a larger, a much greater avenue to display anger, dissatisfaction, and demand for change. No, this is not going away. And as it stands, and of course, Trump, which I know is Brian's favorite subject and your favorite subject in a way, he is making things much worse. He's taking a bunker mentality. He's taking a very anti-attitude. I think his latest statement was, "Hey, Seattle, take your city back." I mean, these kind of statements don't help. Not only do they not help, it just fans the flames. Now, I was just told, my hospital just claimed, be careful, there's a demonstration going outside very near to the hospital. Be careful when you're coming in, okay? This is telling you it's not going away. And by the way, that's a suburb, okay? So
to celebrate, it's Toledo, Ohio,
from
folks.
City to suburbs.
Right.
So it's broadening its base.
I think some things that I like to call attention to, some specifics to support kind of what we're all saying. All right. Some things are just kind of unbelievable to me. Roger Goodell basically said, when you cut through what he was trying to say, the NFL was wrong. Kopernik was right.
I give him credit for backing.
I agree. I
can't stand the guy, by the way, but kudos to him.
I'm just
saying, about time, and I agree with you. A certain NFL quarterback by the name of Colin Kaepernick, who Brian and I defended on the show, what was it, 2 years ago, Brian?
Yes, 2 years ago.
We passionately came out.
Absolutely.
I mean, he became an Amnesty International spokesman, and he was absolutely right. And the NFL shot him down.
And so what we saw, so suddenly now, people who can see, and that's Trump is still convinced, would still call him a son of a bitch, which he did. Okay, take a knee, you're a son of a bitch. Now, it goes beyond that. Look at the owners. A number of that. Ron Rivera, who's the coach of the Washington Redskins, a new coach, right? Kind of has to be careful if you think about that. He said, "Hell no, I'm supporting any player who's going to take a knee. I know that's the right thing to do." Adrian Peterson, running back, will make the Hall of Fame on the Redskins now. Adrian said, "I'm going to do that." You will see. It just keeps. Now, let's look at other things. This is going to be tough. The most racially, the sports organization most associated with the KKK is NASCAR. Now, I'm not saying it's like this, right? But Southern Boys, the idea, they banned the Confederate flag. That's a huge move. Okay.
Well, you may not know this, but Brian is a secret fan of NASCAR.
I don't think it's so secret.
Yeah, me and my bulletproof Toyota Tercel.
Think about that. Now, let's get to my mother's favorite movie. My mother's favorite movie was Gone with the Wind. It was racist the day it was made. It's racist today.
Although, Dave, it did launch the stardom of Hattie McDaniel, the first black actress to win an Academy Award.
And she also had to sit in the back to accept the award. Could not sit with those.
Hattie was great. She was great.
And I feel the same way about Vivian Lee that I kind of feel about Stormy Daniels. Vivian Lee was the Stormy Daniels of her time. She was picked up. Well, never mind. But anyway, all of a sudden, not research. But now, the newest network, right, that's just been created, said, we're going to pull that, and they claim we'll see what happens. I like whoever put this up here.
That's Ryan Velez out of Michigan.
Ryan, you're absolutely right.
Hey, Ryan.
But here's the thing, Ryan. We can't change hearts. I know a lot of liberals, and I shouldn't say that, a lot of people want to change hearts. That can only be done by the person. What you can change is the appearance. And as much as I make fun of that, that becomes a reality. So what happens? Roger Goodell, I'm not making him a saint. What he said, I think he looked at it from a business proposition too. I do think it was a business thing.
I think it ultimately is always.
I mean, if you're at that level. And so what he said is, yeah, good politics can be good business, right? And this is that time. And it gets, Paul, to what you were saying, and Brian, to what you were saying, this is something different. The fact that this Gone with the Wind now, they're claiming they're going to put it back on, right? It's not banned forever, but they're going to put it on, not with disclaimers, but they're claiming they're going to put a little, like, and Gary, if you're still listening, I promise I won't do it because it would be too long, but just a little piece about how this was racist and, not a representation of and a glorification of and all that. Now, again, Paul, we were having a discussion earlier today, you and I, I think ignorance plays a big part in the election of Donald Trump. And what I mean by that is, if you look at Gone with the Wind and you think that's not a racist film, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
But you have to look at what it was in 1939.
We have to be fair.
But so, I don't, sometimes I get so frustrated with that. Like, it's racist. Talk about it being racist.
Mm-hmm.
Say it. If you pull it out. Now, what are the chances of literally statues are toppling, right? It's not figurative. They're pulling the hell down. All right. Every place, Sidwell Friends. Anybody knows basketball? Actually, Obama's kids went there. Children went there. Wow. It's a very interesting school here. They're struggling, as is Georgetown University, with their slave past, right? So all this stuff is in play. And could it have been? I'm going to suggest, Brian, you said exactly what I think happened. The virus had many effects, but it put everybody home, right?
Right.
And so that was in everybody's face 24/7. There was no way to escape it, right? Because it was on TV, it was on your computer, it was this. The second thing I've been thinking about recently is this too. And I'd like to get your guys' opinion on this. And as I always do when I talk about race, I can only talk race as a white person. I think that the coronavirus, in a way, made every white person understand what a black person lives with every day.
Yes.
There's a thing out there that can kill me, not because of what I'm doing, but it's just going to kill me. There's a chance that I might lose my job. And the list goes on. There's a chance now that I see what happens when I have to educate my child. And it was almost like this pressure coming in. I always tell personal stories. It makes Judy mad. We just had a knockdown drag out. We're keeping track of them. It's our 4th pandemic battle, right? And now we're laughing about it. But it was
like
clear.
The WWF.
It is. Well, it's good. We can fight with the best of them. No, but the thing was, it's the pressure. We both started laughing. It's the pressure. Okay. There's not a person alive on this planet right now who is sentient, who shouldn't be feeling some pressure, right? Well, guess what, kids? It's my understanding that Black Americans, and I don't want to exclude Hispanic Americans, so I want to say everybody but damn white Americans, pretty much. Because you say, oh, the Asians are set well. Well, Chinese restaurants were closing left and right because nobody would eat there because the virus came from there. So I'm talking about white America.
By the way, Gary Peacock is back in your favor. He says, "Good point, Dave."
That's right. No, he just wants to come down here and party. Gary's a great partier, by the way. But anyway, no. What happens is this, okay? So I'm going to say it as bluntly as I can, and I apologize for offending any black person in America, and I don't give a fuck what any white person in America thinks right now. In a strange, metaphorical, symbolic way, COVID and effects made every single person not of color understand, if they had any thought at all, what it might be like or what it is like to live as a person of color in America. So I think that adds to it too. You have everybody home. Now, also, when I was messing around a little bit. I like to mess around when I was doing that slow thing to make a point. But we jump on these things. The new term out there, defund the police. You really have to study that to understand what it is. It's a poor choice of words.
Definitely.
It should have been, I don't know a word for this. If anybody can have it, you can come up with, reduce the amount of money we give to the police and use it for other causes and circumstances like addiction, homelessness, social, that would actually reduce the problem.
Well, the pie, the piece of the pie that the police get I don't think it should be messed with. We can reduce the pie size of those who are getting more than their fair share of unpaid taxes and so on. I think that's the pie, piece of the pie we should be aiming for, not the damn police.
No, but okay. I mean, and I don't disagree with it. I do think, though, that I find this horribly offensive. Okay, the police are there to protect and serve, correct?
That's what it says on the car.
All the cars. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not black. I'm not a person of color. But at least
You
for us,
still think about the Tercel.
pretty good job of it. They're not
Give them
there,
Tercels instead.
They're not there to be the goddamn army. So what happens is this. Think about it. The military can't use all and the companies can't send that much now because we're looking at a more sophisticated kind of military. So what do? They sell it at a discount or give it to police stations, right? Tell me why a police thing needs a tank. Well, they got them, right? So it's all part of that. It comes back to racism and economics. That's what formed America. It's still here today. So when I say defund, I think you would look at things that they don't need. I think they need better training.
I've got a couple of comments on this. I think that I would like them to just pick a better quality of police recruit. I mean, I don't know if these guys are just dragging them straight out of the KKK rallies or what, but I think police recruits need to go through, they need to have at least a bachelor's degree, I think. They need to really grow them as far as their sensitivity to diversity. I think that it's the recruitment that needs to be looked at for sure. And of course, they got to root out a culture of, it's probably a good old boy culture in there of good old white boy culture, I would imagine. I suppose there's a lot of that.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. I've
it's hard
seen
to say
that.
because I'm not a cop. I do have friends.
I'm gonna throw this out, guys. I think just short answers. I promise I'll be short too. Brian, would you be a police officer?
No, I said that last week.
You'd be a police officer.
No, I'd nominate you for it, Dave.
And that is the last job that I would take.
I don't think you could write a ticket. He'd still be talking.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be driving, would they?
No, not after they hear you.
Hey, God,
I'm getting off the fucking road.
There's my slogan. Let Dave talk him to death. I'm fine with it. Now, what happens is this, right?
It's like Rocky 20.
Three pretty good guys, right? And we're not going to go in the police force. And I'll tell you why. I agree, Paul, training, all that stuff. Unfortunately, you need to have the ability to shoot people when necessary. You do, okay? I'd love to tell you differently, but we can't.
Dave, you know as well as I do that most countries, the vast majority of them don't arm their cops with firearms. You know that.
Absolutely. Well, nobody. Yeah, right. I mean,
do we need to rethink this? Do we need to rethink? How we arm our police force? Do we need to?
Yeah, well, sure. Except, and I understand this, being an urban reporter.
Or perhaps this, maybe have that firearm available, but it's in the vehicle rather than in person, so that they would actually have to run.
I love that, Paul. Thank you.
Something like that. I mean, after all, if you've got a concealed carry here, there's certain laws where you can have it in the vehicle, but it's not supposed to be loaded, say, for one. And two, it's got to be a step removed. Maybe it's in the glove box or in the... why don't we have concealed carry rules apply to police as well? In other words, bring back the old negotiating skills, the riot-reducing verbal skills. Bring that back instead of shoot first, think later kind of bullshit,
all that makes sense. Two things. One is, we're a violent nation. Okay.
That's for sure.
We're a violent nation. Now, was Germany a violent nation? I guess so. But they're not as violent as we are.
As a society, were they violent, though, Dave? I mean,
well, I know. I mean, that's,
they were militarily, of course. Well, they were politically aggressive, right?
but
is it fair to say that the society was violent? I'm not so sure that would.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying they were, but what I'm saying is myths are important. They're more important than they should be. And myths often can be debunked. The myth is the gunslinger, right? Won the West, came in. Tombstone, right? The legendary shootout at the OK Corral, where a drunk Doc Holliday fired.
Absolutely correct, Dave. Guns, cars, apple pie, and Stormy Daniels. I mean, that's.
Don't talk about Stormy.
That is America.
That's Brian's job. Listen, here's the thing, though. And you do. So a lot of times, but do you realize? You know what the first law was in Tombstone?
I didn't see the movie.
No, I'm talking about the real Tombstone.
Oh, okay. So Tombstone was that what? South Dakota, Montana? Where was it?
Real close. Tombstone, New Mexico.
New Mexico. How about that?
Now,
that was Mexican territory.
We'd taken it from them. Yeah. Hell, Mexico. No, but here's the thing. People don't realize. Here was the number one law in Tombstone. You check your guns upon entry to the city.
Had to.
Now. That just shows, and they've got the people there. So a lot of this myth, how many? Now
that's a good story, Dave.
It's a true story. It's not.
No, it's a good true story. I assuming it's true. Yeah, it's good.
I got to sort that out because sometimes I just make them up. But in this case, the myth. See, the myth survives, right? I know, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to break your heart, some of you. But George Washington probably told a lie. Probably told a lie, and he might not have chopped down that tree. That's what makes us, right? But unfortunately, look at how many of our myths, are violent. Get the Indian. Now, were the Indians, were they the savages? No. Did they do some things, like scalping? That is kind of terrible. Until I don't know why I was doing research on scalping. I just always thought it was like the movies. They didn't. I mean, they cut your head off and you walked around. You didn't necessarily always die from it.
They made prisoners run the gauntlet, which was awful. But awful.
We had the guns. We had the smallpox. We gave it. So my question becomes, Paul. I think all of what you said is true. I'm going to go out in a minute, and later, I'm an hour 5, as we're going on into that. I picked up 4 books today, and everybody, if I seem happy, I am happy. I love bookstores. I haven't been in one. I'm not a big fan of big bookstores. But because chains are opening faster, Barnes & Noble opened down the street from me today. I ran in there not spending any money and ended up with 4 books. And one of those that has been out since we've been in is the history of the NRA. I want to learn about that. And from what I understand, and I just looked through the book, the NRA is not how it was founded, not there. We just move in that direction. So why did the NRA become the huge bad guys? MONEY. As a reporter, you were always told 2 things. Follow the MONEY. You'll find out who did it. And if you can't find the MONEY, find the SEX. And that, they're 2 big motivators, right, for humans.
What were the other 3, Dave?
What? The 2 big ones. I'm just saying they were the 2 big ones.
No, the 3 books. What are the other 3 ones?
I'm going to bring them out later and show you. So when Brian changes his underwear, he does that, that moment when we stop for a minute. Now, let's get back on track. So,
Dave, that sounds a great book. Fill us in as you go, on that.
So anyway, the idea of it is, Brian, you and I play a lot, but yes, of course, I was messing with you on your question and messing on the way. I'll make my 2 points very briefly. We want answers now. And guess what? There are no answers on racism. Should it end? Yes. Will it end? I hope. When? I don't know. There are no answers on the coronavirus. Where did it come from? Who started it? Who didn't? I finished a book last night about a writer who's actually, he did The Looming Tower. He's mostly a nonfiction writer. And boy, did he luck out. He wrote a book that is chillingly accurate to this, but wrote it long before about a pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And it just plays out like it's playing out now, but a little bit worse, right? So we don't know. How did the pandemic start? Will it end? Will it not? We don't know. Look, if I'm a parent, my number one concern right now, and they're intertwined, will I go back to work? My job be there? And will my kids be in school? And guess what? They keep saying stuff like they will. They will not. They will not. They will not be in school as they were in January of 2020. Let me repeat that. They will not be in school. Will they be there? Possibly. Now, whether you agree with Dr. Fauci or not, listen to him. He said, yeah, but it'll go region by region, place by place. You're at the mercy of this virus. All right. Now, you look at the environment. Some people say, that senator or whoever the hell it was, took a snowball into the Senate, said, we had global warming, got a snowball in my hand, right? Donald Trump doesn't believe it.
That was Imhoff from Alabama, I think, or something like that. Yeah.
Don't mess with my Alabama. I got my Alabama hat on tonight anyway. But the idea of it is, people either believe in it or they don't. It's not a thing you believe in or you don't. It's a fact. And that is another reason Donald Trump is president. People don't care about facts anymore. Stephen Colbert should be enshrined in the whatever
Oklahoma. I'm sorry, got to interrupt. Daleen, that's your senator, Inhofe. Okay, so I'm sorry, Alabama. I'm tough on Alabama. That was Oklahoma.
Only Brian gets to know who's here. Paul
Brian has this fetish against states that begin with the letter O. Ohio and Oklahoma.
Oregon, right?
Brian doesn't mind Oregon.
No, I don't mind Oregon.
When you stop believing in facts, right? Now, you say, well, 97% of scientists who deal with facts, they don't deal with opinions. The facts might be wrong, but they say it's real. Well, you can disregard that. So tipping point, yeah, okay. I can see why that's clear. But what happens next? You know what the answer is? I don't know. And that's got people frustrated too. I saw earlier a comment that I thought was really on point in one sense, but I would take it in a different way. They said something to the effect that I'm loosely paraphrasing here about Trump supporters. They don't really think about the virus, right? And I'm going to agree to a certain extent. But here's the thing: they don't think consciously about the virus, but it's more deadly. What they know it's deadly, and it's going through their brains. That's why we're seeing this tremendous increase in insomnia. We're seeing the things that are called COVID dreams now. So nobody is unaffected by this, and sometimes it's worse if you can't admit to it, right? If you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, until you admit the problem, you don't. If you got depression, we can just go on and on, right? So I would say that another problem, and Paul and Brian and we've all agreed on this, is we haven't even begun to see the economic devastation. We can't even begin to imagine it. But I'm going to say another thing. We can't even begin to see the increase in mental health problems from this. All right. And it's not something that goes away. A new thing today, or yesterday I was reading about. There are people, now I know this sounds very strange, but remember the mind is a very strange thing, who kind of want to go back to being sequestered at home because it was safer, and they're so worried about that they want to go back to that, right? The normal thing, I want to be free, I want to be out there. This is all this kind of stuff. Now we've got masks as a political statement. I'm going to go on record tonight, and then somebody else get in there, Paul or Brian. Just for me, just being a contrarian, even tomorrow, if they said no mask, I'm wearing a mask till Donald Trump is out of office. So I'll either be wearing a mask until November, and when I say out of office, I mean I like that, or I'll be wearing a mask for 4.5 years, because I'm going to say Donald Trump doesn't wear it, and I'm going to know. A mask, again, has become a symbol. It's become a symbol of the type of person you are. And if you want to be a kind person, and I'd like to be a kind person, if you want to be a compassionate person, and I'd like to be a compassionate person, if you'd like to be, but the most important thing, if you want to be an empathetic person, I don't wear that mask for me. I wear it for somebody out there, man, woman, or child, who I might unknowingly infect. Now, do I like wearing a mask? Yeah, I really do. But do I like wearing it in this heat? I don't. I sweat. No, but so I think again, it's become this thing, and it's the same with the red hats, all this stuff. But they are
For that, Joey comments, Dave, Joey comments, change your underwear.
I think
that?
he was
Joey's
taking
comment.
Dave's comment and directing toward me. Joey's already been tormenting me with his Drew on the wall comment. Okay.
Joey,
Just remember that Joey
love
Fulcher
Joey. We all
got
love
thrown
you,
out
Joey.
of my Tercel for farting in my car.
and I won't say. I just want to direct back to you. You and I have been having a kind of a running disagreement. I mean, we know both same.
I drew on the wall, Dave. I admit it. So did
Oh,
Paul.
not that. Now, I'll talk
Why
about
did you drag me into this?
Paul doesn't like that coming
Brian
up.
and I are pretty hard lines. So I'm going to say this.
Okay.
I am very encouraged by what the military didn't do and what it did
Fair
do.
statement. Fair statement.
All right. Today, Brian, who's the guy? We're testing your news knowledge.
General Milley,
Right. And what did General Milley do today?
Chief of Staff. He created a very short video apologizing for dressing in military garb when he said he thought that he was just addressing the National Guard. Well, when it turns out that basically Trump was using as a photo event, he realized he was being used. So he said that the military must be apolitical. He profoundly apologized. I don't think he used the word profoundly, but he sincerely apologized.
So he's going to get sacked, right, Brian?
No, he's not good. Well, that's Mike Esper already disagreed. That's the question that Dave and I were discussing.
No, Mike
I
Esper.
know. It was great. Last show you guys were discussing.
No, we were discussing that on the show and then on the phone today about what will happen.
Oh,
And I suggest that he will try to find somebody to supplant Milley.
And Brian, what I said though, and I really hold this. If it were just Milley, of course. But I've lost count now, but I think it's 5 other former ranking, people who the military would still look up to, who just said, and basically what they're saying, ladies and gentlemen, is this. Their oath of office is not to the President of the United States. Their oath of office is to the Constitution. Now, what they're saying basically is this. If the President follows the Constitution, we will fight and die for our country and you, because you're reflecting the country. What they're saying, though, is if you are doing something, and if you are doing something for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is the sole beneficiary, or if you're doing something that we interpret or we believe is against the Constitution, and one of the things the military believe very strongly is that their soldiers should not fight Americans, right? The last time that really happened, we had the Civil War.
Correct.
So they don't want to do that. Now, they're not ditching their responsibilities, telling the National Guard to go out there and do it, but that's what the National Guard is supposed to do. Donald Trump does not understand much of anything, but he certainly doesn't understand the Constitution, I hope. It's even worse if he does and ignores it or rips it up.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate here. Okay, because you may be right, Dave, but let's go back to Truman MacArthur. Okay, MacArthur is going to try to defy Truman. Let's suppose someone like Milley does it again, but this time he says, "I'm not walking with you."
Right.
Remember, Trump is the commander-in-chief, and then he has the right to fire him. He can fire him. He is the commander-in-chief.
Absolutely.
And what I'm suggesting is, first of all, I don't know that Milley would disregard an order from a commanding officer, number one.
Brian, I don't think you were listening. I want to say this. He would disregard it if he thought it was unconstitutional or against the best interests of America.
And at that point, he'd have to resign his position. Okay. I mean, otherwise he's going to be let go. But what I'm saying is, I know what you're saying, and I'm actually agreeing with you. However, I'm going to play lawyer, anti-lawyer.
Sure.
Understand, everywhere down the line, he has replaced somebody. And we can go in through, Scott Pruitt, Andrew Wheeler, through Betsy DeVos, every single one of these people.
Political hack.
Yes. But you know what, Dave? They're polluting the shit out of this country right now, whether they're political hacks or not. She's taking away money from public education, whether you like it or not. She's doing what she wants.
Brian, you changed that by voting Donald Trump out of office.
And this is, again, and this is where we go back to the beginning of the show and where I was going to lead with this, with the tipping point. Typically, a tipping point is one event that makes, is an explosion, or I say the meteor. John Brown, you mentioned, actually, I forget what you mentioned. What did you mention?
It's probably just me messing with you.
Okay, well, in any case, there are tipping points, and there was a tipping point with George Floyd. But what I'm saying is, because there are so many ingredients incorporated now with young people, with the environmental movement, that if in November he cheats again, and we know he's going to cheat, Brian, but he wins on the cheat, then you will get the tipping point again.
Would you do one thing for me? There's no if about his cheating in November. It's when he cheats.
If he's successful enough to steal the election, that's when I say that is going to be no different than a knee on somebody's neck.
Did you see the lines in Georgia?
Yes, but we didn't have a violent revolt last night.
Did you see anybody going home?
No, but that doesn't win you an election.
Well, how the hell do you win an election? You got to vote.
Right, I understand that, but don't forget that, for example, the machines were working improperly. Some people probably did go through fatigue and left, and that might matter in a national election. What I am saying is that because of what they're going to do, if in fact, as Michael Moore has suggested, that he takes this thing, he cannot win in a fair election. All three of us agree on that. He'll probably lose by 5, maybe 6 million votes. And anybody watching this program knows that's probably going to be the truth. However, when we do get the cheat and we get it from, and it's going to be the governors, you have to agree with me on that. It's going to be somebody like the governor of Florida, DeSantis, or it's going to be...
All you're saying is true, but you know what? You can't let it come down to the Florida. You can't let it come down.
Just wait, Florida. It will.
What?
It will come down.
Not.
That's where I disagree with you.
I'm going to go on tonight. He's going to lose Pennsylvania. He's going to lose Michigan. He's going to lose Wisconsin. He's going to lose Ohio. He's going to lose Nevada. He's going to lose New Mexico. He's going to lose Arizona.
And he's listening tonight, and he's going to take care of that. Okay.
If he has people there that will. They're not all Republican states, Brian. You really think the governor of Ohio is going to help Donald Trump win? Even though he's a Republican?
He doesn't have to. In fact, he doesn't even have to have the governor. All he has to do is have one district. Let's suppose in Sylvania, Ohio, Paul's familiar with that, or some other area where it's a little more conservative.
Right now,
right. And okay, so they go to Sylvania, Ohio, and some local guy starts fucking with the machines. He doesn't need the governor.
A Democrat there or somebody anti-Trump there to prove it on the spot. Look, you can
was it Brian Kemp will do it?
Listen, Brian, you can only cheat if you're allowed to do it. If you get caught, you can't cheat, right?
Who's going to stop them in places like Sylvania, Ohio?
Have you ever worked the polls?
I've been at a poll.
Well, I know that, but I'm not.
No, look, obviously I've not worked at a poll, but I know shit goes on.
Brian, a poll where a girl's not dancing. I'm talking about a place where you vote. I know in Russia you spent all that time there.
Okay.
Do you know what happens in a poll, Brian?
Look, you have an attorney there from both parties. You have an overseer. But you know what? What happens 4 hours before people come in and they start fucking with the machine? Or just take a machine out and fuck it up. So now you only have 1 or 2 machines there, and then all of a sudden you have 12,000 people coming in that day.
And then, look,
there you go.
Again, you can only go with what you know. When Barack Obama was reelected, we're so fortunate, Judy and I, we vote in our building. Think about that.
Because John McCain was honest. We don't have a John McCain running now.
You're like my wife. You always assume where I'm going. You don't. So
I want you to go that way. You will go where I'm going.
Cut you off before you get started, Dave.
You're going a lot of different directions. I know that.
Listen,
That's what Gary Peacock says.
They're cutting you off, Dave.
I got it. I got no problem.
You got them all covered. You're on each
now, here's the thing,
square on the chessboard.
That line was wrapped around this building 3 times. And guess what? Everybody in that line was voting for the same person, Barack Obama. Right? But they stayed in that line. People are not necessarily, all of them, going to vote for Joe Biden, right? A number of people are going to vote against Donald Trump. Now, I'd rather, like I keep coming back to you, Brian, cheating, Russia. You don't think China's going to get involved? Maybe they want Joe. They certainly, I don't think they want Russia. I don't think they want Putin.
Yeah, we don't have U.S. elections now anymore.
They can do it before they even get to the polls. they can throw them off the voting lists. They can do anything.
So, Brian, do you think Trump will get back in then?
Let's put it this way. If they cheat, and enough of them cheat, and get away with it, we're going to see the worst protests, violent protests on November 4th you're ever going to see. He could do it. And even Dave, you can't deny that. There is a possibility that can happen, and you're not disagreeing with that. November 4th could be one of the worst days in the history of this country.
And it could also be one of the best.
One of the best. It's going to be one or the other, in my opinion. We're going to have, you got catharsis.
Jeez, there's an insight.
Okay. Either we're going to have a catharsis or some people are going to explode. And that may have to be you. You may have to explode because you have great expectations on this.
No, I have realistic expectations. There's a difference. Wild expectations, you look off and I say, tonight, 32 luscious women are going to walk in here and Judy's going to say, they're all yours. That ain't happening, all right? Now, we have a little bit more.
Is Judy aware of these fantasies?
What?
Is Judy aware of these
fantasies? I tell all the time. We just have fun with it.
Well, Paul, before Stormy Daniels, there was an actress. She was from the bygone days that Dave really liked. I think I actually have a picture of her somewhere here. What was her name? Oh, yes. I forget her name, but it was Miss Teacup. He really liked her.
Actually, Brian, unlike you, Brian, I'm not a fat shamer, and I can find beauty in the soul. So I think she's a beautiful woman.
Right.
You argue that out with Bonnie tonight. You sexist, misogynist pig. Now.
Hold it. His desk is rising right now. What's going on?
Where do you grab him, Brian?
Okay.
Now. Would you agree with this, Brian? Tonight.
Yes.
I use this every night before I go to bed. Some people say prayers. I say this. When I go to bed tonight, would I rather be Joe Biden or would I rather be Donald Trump? And the only concern is my only goal, my only reason to live is to be president of the United States. You don't have to read the tea leaves. All you have to do is look outside your door. All you have to do is look out what's it. I'm going to say I'd rather be Joe Biden tonight. I'm going to reserve the right to change tomorrow. I mean, because it is a day-to-day thing. Now, where do the Republicans miscalculate? And where did Trump? There's a lot of ways. But here's this. I would like to suggest to anyone who doesn't have tremendous money invested in the stock market, is the real job indicator how you're making out paying your mortgage, or is the real job indicator about stocks going up? The Republicans put their faith in. Donald Trump puts his faith in. He says the greatest economy ever. Yeah, all right, whatever. But it's not. Brian, there are more poor people than rich people. Now, here's the thing. The rich people vote because it's in their best interest to vote. Well, somehow between now and November, we have to say to the poor people, we have to say to the disenfranchised people, we have to say to the people with no hope, we have to say to the people, yes, I know there's been promises before that weren't done, but here's what we'll do, those of us who care. And I've been guilty of this too. I've been so guilty of this. Sometimes as a white person, as a upper middle class person, I've never been anything but that. And the list goes on. College educated. The only times I ever got unemployed was when I was fired, and most of the time I was seeking that. So it didn't really bother me. I've never lived the hard knock life that so many Americans, whether it's because they fell into poverty, whether it's because of their color, whether because of their sexual orientation, whether it's because of their gender. And our jobs, those of us who think that that Donald Trump, you want to know something honestly? Donald Trump ain't so bad for me. Really? I mean, if I looked at all the economic indicators that Republicans look at and all that bullshit, what he's bad about, ladies and gentlemen, he's a bad man. And he makes bad men make bad decisions. And why is it bad man? And why does he make bad decisions? As a president, you're supposed to make the best decisions you can for the majority of people in America. And you know who Donald Trump makes his decisions for? Donald Trump.
Right. By the way, did you see what Biden said was his number one concern about the future? Biden said the number one concern he had was that Trump was going to cheat his way through the election.
Brian, of course. But see, I don't find that as a concern. I find that as a reality.
Right, but you know where I'm going with this is...
I know where you're going with this.
Okay. He's 1 for 1, That's pretty good, okay. Dave. You're 0 for 13, and Trump is 1 for 1.
No problem with that.
Okay.
Two differences. We're now aware that Donald Trump cheats. Now, we knew he cheated in business. We knew he cheated on his wives. We knew he cheated on his golf game. But we didn't really think, a number of us, that he would cheat to get the presidency. And he did. We're aware of that. Everyone who thinks they have an answer or can do it, should be trying to change that. The second thing is, and I think everybody's admit, not everyone, so many people miss this, Donald Trump can no longer run as the outsider. Why do I say that, Brian? Why do I say he can't?
Oh, I thought you were just coming up with just a rhetorical question. Okay.
No, usually, Brian.
Why is he not an outsider now?
Yeah.
Well, you can't be an outsider because you're the incumbent, number one.
Stop. A big advantage from Donald Trump has been removed. He has a record. And I don't mean a top 45 going to the top of the charts. I mean, he's done things or not done things. So you either have to like what he's done or like what he's not done. And the best political question ever asked, but they don't ask the second part. The first part is, am I, my family, my immediate, the people you shelter with, are we better off today than we were 4 years ago? But you can't stop there. You have to ask, are the majority of the people in the country I call my home better off? And that's not as altruistic as it sounds. Do you really think if everything was equal as it could be? I mean, I don't want to get into that debate, but let's just assume everybody had equal opportunity to do everything. You really think we'd have all the problems we have right now? The problems are caused by inequality a lot of times. Now, they're bad dudes, all that sure, whatever. And Donald Trump, I will charge him with this, not only has he done nothing to reduce the inequality in America, he has done things to exacerbate.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. You stop me, I stop you. And you're right. He's done all the things that you say, Dave. And again, and I said this on Tuesday, 95% or whatever percent you say is against Donald Trump. But let's not forget the Jim Inhofes. Let's not forget the Brian Kemps, the Ron DeSantis's. He has a team behind him. He's got a Supreme Court behind him.
Brian, whoa.
And that's what makes him dangerous.
No, we're not saying that.
It doesn't matter that you ask the question, well, what can we do for our country rather than ourselves, okay? We know that, but most people don't really give a shit about the next person because they don't know them. They don't know them.
Now you're defeating your own.
No. Look, I care. I have empathy for people.
It ain't about you, Brian.
Okay.
Here's what I'm saying. You start out with this, and then you defeat your own argument. I'm saying, of course, but if you want to know a change that I sense and see, the coronavirus became sort of a great American equalizer. Does it kill rich people? Yes. Black. Now, we can get into the argument about it kills, people to gather more, so black. But I mean, basically, it doesn't say, oh, let's see, Dave's white and, oh no, we're going to move away from him. And I think, maybe I'm naive.
It's hit us a lot harder than it's hit the conservatives.
Maybe whatever. But I really do think that more people now realize what it's like to be in worse shape than they did before the virus hit. Now, some people won't be happy until Donald Trump is linked with making the virus in his bathroom. That didn't happen. All right? You just have to ask sometimes the right questions, Brian. What did any one of these questions, what did Donald Trump do? What didn't he do? And you're not going to pry away. I mean, I get so tired of that goddamn argument. Pry away as people. It's a cult. Okay? Now there is hope. And here's why I say there's hope. I had a conversation with my brother-in-law. I understand there's an investigation to find him out.
I should give you a good example why you shouldn't have hope. Look at your brother-in-law.
No. Would you like to just say everything for me? Because you seem to know this.
He's an example of the problem.
Jesus Christ, if you'd listen.
I've been waiting an hour and a half for the answer. Okay. Go ahead, Dave. Folks, Dave and I joke all the time. This is just, we do this on the phone. This has been going on for 20 years.
No, here's what happens. Yes. Prior to whatever this thing is, right? I had no hope he would vote against Trump. I think right now it's 50-50. And it was 100% before. How many people don't need a whole ton? And people, God, I don't want to say they're but everybody thinks, every politician wants a clean sweep. Okay? They want to win everything. You don't have to win everything, Brian and Paul. I'm directing to Brian, and Paul knows. But you just have to win enough to get elected, right?
I'm hoping.
Is Donald Trump going to be able to win California?
No, he's not going to win California. He's not worried about that.
Oregon.
No.
Washington.
No.
New York.
No.
New Jersey.
No.
That's a hell of a lot of electoral votes right there.
Right.
I'll take that against the Dakotas, Montana, that whole spread right there. Now, is it enough to be president? No. But it's there. He goes in with that. Another reason that I'm encouraged, it's not just, and again, it doesn't matter. Every one of those Democratic candidates who ran brought much to the table. They really did. But it ended up being Joe Biden. So now you have to look at, what does Joe Biden bring to the table that nobody else did? Well, here's what Joe Biden brings, whether you like it or not. Joe Biden brings an extension, a continuation of the 8 years of Barack Obama. Anybody who hated Obama for president will not vote for Joe Biden.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I like those odds because Barack Obama is more popular now than when he was president, right? Joe Biden is known as, and I know I'm the first one to get, he's known as Pennsylvania's third senator.
Right.
He's from Reading, correct? Pennsylvania?
I believe so.
Yep.
And he's around Philadelphia a lot.
He's got that. All right. I like his chances very much in Michigan. And you know why I like his chances very much in Michigan? Because people disagree with it, whether it's right or wrong. He's associated with Obama, who gave a bailout there and put jobs back. Look, politics is not always about the right and wrong thing to do, morally. Sometimes it's questionable, and you're going to question that. And Paul, you were saying before, and you and I agree on this, I'm going to play devil's advocate, not against you and I, against you and I, right? There are people who believe that you give money to the job creators, right? That's what we hear. Well, that would be true if they didn't put it in their damn pocket.
Well, that's not even true, because rich people do not create demand.
I know, I understand that, but I'm just saying that's
the consumer creates a demand, not the rich person.
I realize that, but what I'm saying is it doesn't matter. Again, these myths are so important. Hillary Clinton, the myth on Hillary Clinton was she wasn't for the working person. The myth surrounding Joe Biden is that he's for the working person.
We had a correction here, Dave. Biden's from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
Close enough. Same area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to do something Donald Trump would never do. I was wrong.
I don't know who that was. We had Ryan Velez and John Fuqua.
It's fine. I don't care. I don't care who it was. I appreciate when I am corrected, unless I'm lying. That was just something I spoke, and I should have said I think he's from, and I didn't. And I have no problem apologizing. Donald Trump does. Anyway, look, we would argue all night about who goes where, who does what, who does this thing. At some point, while this is a lot of fun, and I love this show, Paul, you do. What's his name? Paul, the guy who moderates the show. Ryan?
Ryan, yeah.
Ryan, yeah. Ryan, you have to make this decision. I have to make it. Yeah, we're having fun. Yeah, we're talking. Yeah, we're rallying the people. I would hope some of what we're doing, or what I want to do, is inspire, to tell people not to give up. This can be done. I wouldn't say it if I didn't think it could be done. Can Donald Trump be beaten? Of course he can. Will it be easy? No, of course it won't. Will it take a lot of us doing it? Yes. May we need to sacrifice things? And speaking of sacrifice, think of this. And this, again, is the audience or anyone else, and spread it around if you get it. These people who are protesting, they know that by doing what they're doing, they could be leading to their own death or the deaths of those people around them, correct?
It's some things are worth living for and some things are worth dying for, and that's what they're doing.
And we always say those words, right? We always, that. Well, this time, they're not words. We see Americans doing that. That is courageous.
Yes.
As all get out. All right? Now, it's pretty easy to go out, this is a fun thing, No. You know what else they got? They don't have the coronavirus out there all set. They've got police, law enforcement, guardsmen, the Iranian guards. I don't know who the hell's out there, but there's a hell of a lot of people getting beat up and shot up, reporters, you know what I'm saying? So and they're saying, I don't care about that. But then you have some things that are just so funny that you just have to sit back and say, wow. Trump staked his career on building a wall. And that wall that went up was not in Mexico near the border. The Mexicans didn't pay for it. None of that. It went up to keep people from breaking into Donald Trump's house and beating the living bejesus out of him. Now, that wall, though, became a symbol. I'm sure you gentlemen have seen, I've seen walls of wonderful messages up there, right? So what's Donald Trump going to do? He said, I'm going to take the messages off. And he said that. Somebody got to him and said, Donnie boy, that might not be the best thing. I think we're going to have to remove the wall. That's a victory. Okay? That's a victory. Donald Trump no, he didn't run to the bunker, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure the Secret Service ordered him to go. He comes out because he can't be perceived as weak. He says, oh, no, that was an inspection. Yeah, right. Inspect my ass. And his own attorney general, bought and sold by them. I'm boring Paul. He's almost asleep. Now I'm laughing.
Oh, shit. If I'd have known, I'd put him on the screen. Oh, Christ.
I know. But here's the thing, Brian. There are these little victories. And I think sometimes, again, I think you're very representative of people who do. You definitely want Donald Trump gone. But the little victories, and they're not little victories if they end there, but if there are little victories, that help. And you got to, yes, one vote, yes, one day, but you got to keep. And here's why else you got to keep the pressure on Donald Trump. He doesn't handle pressure well. He doesn't.
I agree with you completely.
Now, he needs to feed off that crowd. Now, there's very few things besides seeing Stormy Daniels a certain way that Donald Trump and I share in common. But I do understand this. He feeds off the crowd. As a musician, as a speaker, as a teacher, I feed off the crowd. I'm not real, my crowd tonight is you, Brian. I mean, I have to feed off you. And that's not that easy. It's one and it's me. And then Paul is there to referee and be, and people, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to the show, please, if there's ever a disagreement, Brian's on one side, I'm on the other. If Paul takes a side or presents a third side, that is the way you go, okay? Paul is the sane one, the stable one, the most thoughtful one, the most well-read one, the one who least goes for gimmicks. So go with him. But these little victories, Brian, they're pretty big because they feel so what's Trump going to do? I got to have the crowd. He was going to stage a convention. Brian, I'm using you tonight because it's just a lot of fun. Where was he going to stage that convention, Brian?
Where was he going to stage it? North Carolina.
Yes. And is he going to stage it there now?
No, he's not.
And why is that, Brian?
Because they told him he can't.
And why did they tell him he can't, Brian?
Because it would be in violation of protocols for the pandemic.
Okay. So the President of the United States doesn't believe, he doesn't believe one of two things. He either doesn't believe he can get it, he's above it, not good, or he believes his people, like, instead of walking on water, they can come in and risk it and won't get it. Wouldn't it be, I don't want anybody to die in this, but wouldn't it be ironic if everybody who attended the convention died and couldn't vote for him because his votes are there? He needs that. Right?
I want him to pound the flesh.
Brian, next question. Where is nobody's officially announced, but do you know where they're talking about having it now?
They were talking about, I believe it was Dallas, Texas, and even he's running into problems there.
No, it was another place. Keep going.
No, if it wasn't North Carolina.
All right, let's see what
South Carolina. I don't know. I would guess it's a red state.
Anybody who knows, can you put it up for us? Anybody who knows where they're talking about now? I know something. Nobody, no, it's not secret.
Jacksonville. Somebody just said
that was mentioned. Yes, and that is the city. All right.
I don't see how he could do it in Jacksonville. He'll have protests all over the place there.
Brian, it doesn't matter where he goes. They're going to protest. It doesn't matter. Look, this is not 1968, but it is a year of protest. That convention, the only place it could be safe is on a cruise ship 10 miles off the coast of America. That's the only place it could be safe. Now, what you have to ask yourself as a governor, what you have to ask yourself as a mayor, any city official, normally conventions are moneymakers. They're huge. Do you know, and this is verifiable, so it's not something I make up. Do you know who prostitutes want to have a convention? Do they want Republicans or Democrats? Do you know? Brian.
Oh, you're asking me. I don't know. You didn't.
Some inside info from Stormy.
No, this is real.
No, you're saying are you talking about any city that would possibly want a convention?
No, I'm saying if the prostitutes decide.
Oh, yeah, I can answer that one. Oh, that's easy.
Exactly.
They got the money.
Right.
Not only that, they're the most religious ones are the ones most likely to go to the whorehouse.
Well, that's it. But the idea of it is there's a lot of financial advantages to having a convention. A lot.
Oh, yeah,
you have to ask yourself, do we want to look like Chicago in 1968? That's what so yes, you can duck and say, this, that, or the other.
That's not happening in the Republican Party, though, Dave. I mean, like kind of Chicago primary convention violence. I mean,
well, outside the convention, you might get it, though.
Right, but Trump is not. He doesn't have any opposition within his party.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that, Paul. I'm sorry. I wasn't clear. I'm talking about there will be riot.
And you're right, Dave. I get your point now. You're right.
Now, there are Republicans who are rolling the Richard Nixon dice, right? And saying, bring it on, right? Normally, riots favor the law enforcement candidate. That's been historically correct. Richard Nixon ran the law and order, to the White House, right? But here's the difference. Here's the difference. Richard Nixon wasn't the incumbent, right? Richard Nixon was. Trump has, I think, a lot of people seen by what he did, and this is so wonderful. If you have a theory, and I'm not saying I agree with this theory, if you have a theory that evil defeats itself or sows the seeds for its own demise, or if you have a Shakespearean tragic flaw that's going to bring Donald Trump down, it was the fact that on his fake Bible walk, he had Americans attacked. They were not violent. They were simply doing their American right under the First Amendment to protest. And just like we can't shut our eyes and say a white rogue policeman didn't kill a black man on the street, you can't close your eyes and not unsee what you saw. So I think in this kind, normally, and I think Republicans live more in the past. I really do. I think they're riding a lot on that. Now, who would love to see that? Stephen Miller, and we don't know how much he has in Trump's ear, because he firmly believes. I mean, he would be right there with Goering and Himmler and all that kind of people. So I don't know. I mean, I don't see it. I see Trump again just being Trump. A convention without masks, disaster waiting to happen. A convention anywhere. I mean, he can't not have the convention. But being rejected. Look, that shows the American people something too. North Carolina, which is in play, right? But normally a red state, said no. Okay? So now, does he really need to have that convention in Jacksonville politically? No. You need to have it in a state where that momentum can continue to carry you. He's got Florida, or he doesn't have Florida, right? I'm going to say he has Florida. I'm going to put Florida in Trump's column.
It would seem rational.
Yeah.
I had a bet.
But, that's going to be a real upset. So he doesn't need. So what he is, he's desperate. He's desperate for adulation. He's desperate to show that he's a man. He's desperate.
And let's add to that. Would you agree that the party itself will be desperate? That's what I'm worried. Again, the party, Dave. The party is radicalized. They talk about the Bernie faction. That party is far more radicalized than you could ever be if everybody switched to Bernie Sanders.
And the Mitt Romneys are out on the outside.
I'm not arguing, Brian. So let's say they show up to try to intimidate the Democratic convention. Is that what you're saying?
They could.
They could. And you know what? Bring them on. You know why I say that? Any move that the right-wing Antifa. So I guess if you're against Antifa, you're, what's that, pro-fascista or something like that? Bring them on, because American people will see. That's Trump's people gunning down innocent people. You really, I'm sorry I didn't mention this before, Paul, when you were making some good points. When's the last time any of us have heard businesses burned to the ground, right? Mm-hmm. And the owners, large and small, say, I can replace this. The cause is what's important.
It's been a long time, if ever.
I've never, Paul. I mean, I would say isolated. Ben and Jerry's would say something like that, right? But
I can't recall it either.
No, you really can't. I mean, so Brian. I make light of it. I don't make light of it. Absolutely. Could Donald Trump steal the election? Yes. Would he be okay with stealing the election? Yes.
Again, please include the party.
Christ, Brian.
You keep saying Trump as if it's this, monolith. It's an entire party that's causing this?
We don't vote against Bill Barr. We vote against Donald Trump. I mean, that's what we're saying.
Well, he has an
McConnell
effect.
owes his political life to Trump, you know.
Who?
McConnell.
Oh, absolutely. Well, look, McConnell is whatever McConnell is. I still haven't figured him out. But McConnell is going to win Kentucky. But he's in the biggest battle of his life.
Ryan, make sure you vote against him. Ryan Velez is.
He will. Kentucky. He will. Ryan will. So, you know, I think there is such a thing as ridiculous rose-colored glasses. I just took 3 tabs of acid, you know, kind of unreality, optimism. But I don't really see how any American who is not for Donald Trump right now can't see some optimism. If nothing else, there's a goal. Now, I've said this all along. It's easy for me to say. You remember when Antonio was on the show with you, Paul, you know, the reality report? I keep coming back. That really troubles me. The young man, I need to repeat it because not everybody's always here. A young black gentleman, I believe 26, learned, articulate, far more schooled in some things than I'll ever be. But the thing that bothered me as a 68-year-old man talking to this 26-year-old kid, he doesn't see a future. And it's very hard.
How could they see a future, you know?
Paul, you're absolutely right, okay?
How can they, you know?
But here's
I don't know. I work with a lot of young people in the hospital.
I agree with you, Paul. I agree. But here's
I'm just, if any of them see a future, it blows me away. The only future they see is a day-to-day debt peonage resulting from unrealistically high interest rates on large amounts of student loans, and struggling with looking after kids at the same time as working for the man, and it's tough. And then your environment is being spoiled in front of you. Of course, it doesn't stop them from pumping out more kids. Bear in mind, but
and I agree with you. But I don't know if I could convince them this, but I believe this. I really do. Even when there's no hope, and there are times, I mean, I can't give somebody hope, right? I mean, that's a feeling you have to. What do? You still fight the fight. You still fight the fight. To me, you know, they're the bravest of all. It's hard to do because we all want to win. We all like to win. The victory party is much better, you know. But the thing is, if you really don't, if that's Stormy Daniels, who's calling you?
Hold on a second, guys.
Okay. Let's listen to Paul's phone call, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a brief break. Oh, shit. It must really be Stormy Daniels.
Oh, now he's got a big picture of himself on there.
Hey, look, if he had to cut the camera off, that had to be something illicit.
Look, you know, Brian, basically a line, and we always disagree on certain things. We agree on almost everything, but we disagree on the approach. I think if I had to analyze you and myself, and then you can turn around, I think you are a practical realist, and looking at things right now, it's pretty, you certainly can look at it as down. I see the same thing. I see a little bit better than you do. I mean, in terms of, I'm a little bit more optimistic than you are.
Well, you're not willing to call the Republican, what they've done, you're not willing to say this is a de facto coup. You're not willing to do it.
A coup from whom?
They're breaking away from essentially the Constitution of the United States, everything they've done. And so it's de facto. I mean, it's essentially an illegal government, in my opinion. They've taken our fucking government, Dave. And it's time we take it back.
There you are. Okay. Now, let's assume you can't take it back. You go down fighting. Brian, you said
you take out if you're going to lose a fight, you take out a tooth.
Most of the time, they're bullshit words, okay? There's things worth living for, and there's things where I don't want to die.
Well, sometimes, but you would die under certain circumstances, okay?
And this, apparently, I didn't choose it for these people, right? They chose it for themselves. Now, do you really see people willing to die for Donald Trump? Yeah, if they go to the convention. They're going to the convention.
They're willing to kill for him. I'll say that.
Fine. That's okay. But how many of them really are? if I had 74 AR-47s in my home.
We know a couple people, Dave. You and I personally know a couple people that probably would go off and do it.
It's interesting.
Without naming names, there are a couple.
I've named them now. The most bogus argument for guns is this: I need them to protect me from the government. Bullshit. The government has bombs, tanks. They've got seals. They can jump into water. I don't know what the hell they got. That's just crazy.
Trained dolphins.
Whatever, right? They've got LSD. They've got fluoride. They'll put fluoride in your water. They've done it before. Look, that's stupid. You want the goddamn guns because you want the guns. Now, the question is, will you use the guns? And how many goddamn guns can you fire at one time? If 72 people rush your house, right, with guns, and they each have 2, I'm not good at math, but isn't that 144 guns come firing at you?
72.
That's a gross.
Rush your house.
Right? 72 people with 2 guns rush your house. And you got 2 guns.
You've got 72 protesters out for justice and equality are rushing your house.
I'll take them unarmed.
That's a hell of a way to go, huh?
You might die, but 20 of them will get in, and they're going to pull your wiener off or something, right?
I'll open the door. Trick or treat.
Come on. I
should be joking about that.
At least be honest. You want the goddamn guns? Yes. To protect you if your home is invaded.
Right.
But not if it's invaded by the army.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And just by, look, you could end up like Terry Kath, it's not.
Well, there's always those dangers.
Right.
And the other thing that really.
Oh, with the kids, Brian. Even worse.
Right, with the kids.
No.
What a way to ruin your life.
And there's the myth too, Paul. That's sort of like, and again, I'm so cautious that I'm usually not a cautious person. That's like a black person believing in white Jesus. If there were a Jesus, he would have been dark skinned. But let's
absolutely. But actually, Dave, let's talk about guns for a second. Don't you think? I mean, they argue that it's to protect them against the military, but don't you think a lot of American gun collectors, they're scared of black people?
That's what it is.
With guns.
That's what it is.
And the ironic thing is that I think most of the guns, clearly, overwhelmingly.
Well, there are many
gun collectors.
There are many. First of all, let me say again
that original sin you often talk about, that native distrust and fear for the black American.
Okay, let's look at that, Paul.
Still pervades this country.
First of all, just like everything else in the United States right now, it depends on who has the guns, where they are. Guns are more deadly in urban areas probably than rural areas, because rural kids grow up learning to hunt, all those kinds of things. So we'll take those arguments out. But it still comes down to practical numbers. All right, gun owners only reply to this, and bad gun owners. So bad gun owners, I don't know the percentage. I'm going to say under 10% of Americans who own guns own them should probably not have them.
A criminal or about to be criminals.
I'm talking about
the criminal class or whatever.
The other. But I'm saying, so let's say you're really long.
Maybe less than that. It may be significantly less than that.
I'm just saying 9 out of 10 I know are good. Right. Now, so you're one of those ones. It's not that you're not good, but you're going to protect your house. So you got your 57
guns,
AK-47s.
No, your 57 guns, because your house is going to be rushed by this criminal class.
Well, let's assume it is. Let's play their game for a minute. You can fire 2 guns, okay? Unless you've trained your feet to fire weapons. 2 guns. I'll take the odds of 8 people with 2 guns. That's 16 guns fired against your 2 guns. So it's ludicrous for protection. Now, I'm making light of something. Yes, look, I say I'm not biblical. I wish the commandment was thou shalt not kill unless the reason is there. But of course that's debatable, right? Because then people get confused. I mean, I'll go on record tonight. If I had a gun, and I do not, so I'm going to use we could use a pencil, whatever I have. If somebody breaks into my house tonight or my apartment and threatens my wife or I will do everything I can to send them out of life as we know it.
And what you're saying is that in certain circumstances, violence can be appropriate. In certain circumstances.
The problem becomes...
if it's there to stop something.
The problem becomes who judges that. I mean, that's why we have court systems and all that.
Another thing too, Dave, though, is you'd analyze the situation first. There will be a hesitancy first before you go blowing some guy's head off, and the bullet going through your wall, your drywall, right into your neighbor's house, which is what happens quite more often than people think.
But what I'm saying is, and I don't know this until it happens, okay? But if I really thought that somebody was going to kill me, or even more importantly, someone that I loved, and most importantly, all my grandchildren, I believe that I believe I would attempt to kill them, and if I did, I would suffer no remorse other than the remorse of, gee, I killed somebody, but you know what, they deserved it. So when people say they're peaceful, I mean, I'm a peaceful man. I don't have a gun, but the idea of it is, and you guys alluded to that too. I'm more worried, just like I'm more worried about giving COVID to someone than getting it. I don't want to get it. I'm more worried about having a gun and someday not having it secure, and some kid, grandchild, niece, nephew, neighbor boy, neighbor girl comes in and gets it.
It's a real fear. It's a genuine, real concern.
I have to debate. And I would submit to anyone this. I'm not saying I'm not afraid of things. Hell, I'm one of the biggest chickens in America. But I do know this. When you fear things, you're not free.
Right.
And if you have to have a gun, now, if you collect guns, that's fine. If you have guns for hunting, the other myth, and myths are good, myths are bad.
It could be a reality of where you live too.
Paul, absolutely. Or where you grew up and where you live now. There were far more people in South Jersey who knew how to use guns than there are across the river here in inner city D.C.
Yeah.
Guns, it's interesting. It's also economic. How many wealthy people outside of spousal killings or this kind of thing use guns? Well, they don't have to. They got the damn things they want. They use lawyers. There's that brilliant scene, and any American who hasn't watched The Wire, pee on you. It's not just the greatest. It tells you the story of America in 5 seasons. David Simon, brilliant, the acting, etc. And there's a scene among the character that Barack Obama, interesting enough, got some flack from, because Omar is one of the most, he's a stone cold killer, and he's gay. And so they really played against stereotypes, right? But what he said was in the court, it was one of the most brilliant scenes ever, anywhere. And I wish I had it accurately. I used to have it accurately.
Well, I want to go back to the other point.
But the thing was, let me finish this just quickly. Here's the thing.
The long arch of getting to the answer.
He said a lawyer.
Didn't Martin Luther King say that? We're going to get there eventually.
See, you guys want that. Not you, Paul. Brian.
I'm still waiting for my first question to be answered, Paul. Don't get pissed.
You know what's wrong with Brian? I'm going to reveal it to him.
Oh, shit. Here he goes.
That's what happened. Ladies and gentlemen.
Since he says ladies and gentlemen, I know it's over.
Brian, this is a true story. Brian was sitting on the potty as his mother was trying to potty train him. And Brian, being recalcitrant, didn't want to go.
Where'd you get this story from?
I'm either making it up or it's true. Now that's Brian crying in the background. So he's trying to be potty trained. So what happens is this. His mother, she had to leave him. And he made a vow then, I don't care about truth. I just want to go quickly. Or my mommy will leave me. So that's been the driving force in his life.
Okay.
So I understand this.
But okay, I want to go back to guns for a second.
Go ahead, Paul.
Have either of you fired a gun?
Yes.
I fired a BB gun, yes. BB gun.
Handgun, Dave?
No.
No handgun.
Shotgun.
I went through the classes.
Right.
I did not go ahead and get the concealed carry simply because I have reasons. I don't want cops to know. For example, it's on your license plate. Right. I don't plan to carry a gun out to my car or anything like that. Now, firing a gun, okay, in a range, of course, is where we city people fire them. It's one hell of a scary thing. I mean, you feel that power. It's really, it never ceases to shock me. You're like this. boom,
the
boom,
noise,
boom.
the power, everything.
I mean,
right?
some people get off on it, obviously, but the point is, and the one thing that became clear to me after taking the class is that if you bring out your gun, and the idea is to maybe intimidate somebody or whatever, no, it doesn't work. You have to fire it.
Guns
okay? Because it'll be taken from you, and any kind of hesitancy, or it would simply be taken from you. So
and used against you probably.
So if the drawing of a gun is tantamount to shooting it, do you really want to touch that gun?
Right.
Okay, and that's the dilemma you face, and this is why I asked you if someone came into your house. I mean, you'd have some hesitancy because I know you, Dave. I mean, any average reasonable person would have some hesitancy.
The only thing is, I'm not arguing with you, Paul, but I would say
this is why guns are very dangerous, folks. Very, very dangerous. And what I'm trying to do, Dave, is I'm trying to segue this back to our police, our well-armed police. You see, when you draw that gun, you basically got to shoot it.
Well,
and
certainly.
And so if we could create some kind of cordon sanitaire between the gun and actually having it in your hand, some kind of separation, some kind of either geographical involving some space, or I'm not
looking at it. But here's the thing.
I'm not explaining myself very well, but if it takes them a little time, okay, before they can actually get it, that might make a difference. But having this firearm, at all times. Of course, we're not cops and we're not policing the dangerous areas.
No.
But still,
Brian, and I don't want to.
They're too well armed and too quick to use it. I think that's my, I guess my point.
And I want to follow that on a little different angle. Brian, you're a teacher, correct? Still.
Yes, indeed.
And by the way,
not tonight, obviously.
No, ladies and gentlemen, he's a very good teacher. But let me ask you something.
Dave.
There's a lot of schools that are considering, and a couple have done, arming teachers. Do you think that's a good idea?
Oh my God, it's awful.
Why is it horrible?
Well, I'll tell you why. With me, I can't even keep track of my pens. The first time I walk in, I said, "Where's my gun? Who's got my gun?" And I would lose it right in the middle of class.
Weinstein with a gun.
I can't keep my closet in order. The pen's under the piece of paper, I would lose my gun.
The ones that you came out of, or the one you go into?
But, I mean, no, it's a horrible idea, Dave.
You know why it is? You know why it is, Paul and Brian, we're laughing, but here's the thing. The only reason to have a gun
is to shoot it.
You got it. Now, that could be shot at a person or a target or an animal. You know what I mean? It's not a bad thing. It just depends. If you give
even at a target, it's a very scary, but no, it's a very scary.
I'm not saying not scared, but I mean, it's still, you could hit anything, right? Now, one that really gives me pause, and I've tried this with people, the one that gives me the most pause is, there's two. If guns are outlawed, only outlaws or criminals will have guns. Well, nobody's saying that, so forget that one. But the one that is, give everybody a gun and not bad things will happen. All right. The one that still strikes me, and of course, I'm going to move away from school shootings because I don't even talk about them. The one, I think it was Aurora, I think it was Colorado. Is that where the movie was showing, and there was the thing in?
I believe so.
The guy came in and started firing.
Right.
Now, I think every American has been in a movie theater. Again, I'm not trying to say, I don't know how many non-military people have been where multiple guns were being shot. I have been as a reporter. And what I did was hug a tire so damn hard that I didn't even die, and I watched people get shot to death, right? Wow. And actually, the shooters, I knew them, and they did an excellent job. They shot escaping prisoners from a jail who would have killed, raped, done anything, and there was no other answer. However, I don't think I was in any danger other than bullets flying. You hug that. So, but in a theater, in a darkened theater, you really think you think the bad guy's going to take people out? And I think that's I would assume that's where you're kind of going, and I think it's a very valid point.
What I'm going is that
never fired a gun. You have to respect the gun.
Well, just owning a gun is a dangerous thing. And by the way, it applies to a baseball bat too, Dave. If you hold a baseball bat in a menacing fashion in front of someone else, you better use it because it will be taken from you and used against you in all likelihood. You do not use these items as bullying mechanisms, okay? I guess that's the point. You just don't do that.
And we have, and yet
or ways to intimidate. It's not.
And I would submit with the gun culture, and I'm going to go get my books and just then I'll come back because it's there. But here's the thing: if you think about it, I'm just thinking out loud, which never stops me from thinking. So I could be completely wrong in this. If you kind of just sit back for a minute, you have two groups who are really using guns, properly or improperly. You have the proper group, which I would consider, hunters, target shooters that put them on safety.
The hunters, but
collectors, gun
hunters
collectors.
fuck up all the time.
We need to hunt?
And not only that, they're fucking. Yeah, I know you're not into the animal thing, Dave, but you got two different things going on
in
there.
Today's day and age.
You do not. The last I knew, my great grandfather had to kill a buffalo. But I get my bison by going to Ted's.
That's why we're short of them today.
No. I go around the corner to Ted's Montana Grill and get my bison. No, of course we don't. But I'm even going to concede that. I mean, that's an argument for another day.
Right. I think the grocery stores have everything the hunter needs. Quite frankly, I don't think.
I don't
go out and hunt your damn food.
My father-in-law was a hunter, and some of the stuff he got, some of it wasn't very good. Don't ever eat, guys. If you've never eaten, don't ever eat a wild turkey that your father-in-law shot, and he knows that he shot it, and he leaves the shotgun pellets in there just so you're going to choke on him, and then laughs at you. I've had that happen. No, but there's sometimes these. Then you've got these two groups that I worry about. One are these right-wing people who use the guns to intimidate, and then I worry about the criminal element that uses guns. And they use
guns in all likelihood.
But I'm just saying they use them as an equalizer. Now, I'm going to say something that I'm sure everybody's going to go, Look, I grew up in the town of Bridgeton. Brian's aware of it. Bridgeton's never been an easy city. It's always been a hard city. It's been a poor city. Even when Owens was there were still poor people there. And once Owens left in 1977,
where Paul's father used to supervise at times.
I know, Paul.
He
they're not equal. And so in hard cities, but we grew up fighting. I might be the only person tonight, Paul and Brian, I don't think you have, I might be somebody else listening, whoever got knocked unconscious twice. I wasn't a very good fighter, giving you that. I mean,
poor Dave.
In fist fights. One time I got knocked unconscious by somebody hitting me in the stomach. I mean, that's pretty, but
that's weird.
No, he was the best. These were tough kids. Well, I'm saying we had a tough town, so I wasn't part of that, but you were around it. But here's the thing, and this is not a myth, because it happened to me.
Bye, Daleen.
Bye,
Daleen.
Hi, Daleen. Paul, this is to your point about using a gun and what happens. So I was at a party. The second toughest guy in the school system was drunk at that party. He knew who I was, but he was so drunk, he came up and wanted to fight me. Now, this would have been the same roughly as Muhammad Ali,
Chuck Wepner, maybe.
Pee Wee. I mean, basically that was this fight, right? And I stood there. I didn't know what to do. I was scared as shitless, right?
Yeah, but he was so damn drunk.
Well, it didn't matter. He looked bigger than King Kong did on the Eiffel Tower to me. Not the Eiffel Tower. On the
Empire State
Building. Anyway, I stood there and I got knocked unconscious.
Oh, shit.
My friends dragged me to the car.
Poor Dave.
And I went in on Monday, and I was a hero. Any idea why I was a hero?
Well, let's think. Why Brian was a hero? You know.
Well, I can only think of two things. One, you stood up to him. No, that's number one. In your own way.
And that's it, Brian. We can just stop there. Okay. Now, what they didn't realize is I was too scared to run.
That's okay.
I was trapped. And, I got one punch in. He got one punch in. The difference was I was unconscious and he was unscathed. Okay, so that was the difference in that fight. It was faster than the Liston, when Liston fell. It just was. It was.
Well, at least he didn't fall before it started. I mean, Christ.
Dave, history is kind of really leaning heavily towards it was a dive, mafia related. Well, actually, he was scared of the black Muslims.
Here's my point. In this rough city, I never saw a gun. I did see knives. I did see baseball bats, right? I mean, they were used from time to time. You just didn't see a gun. The other thing you didn't see, and Brian, you can attest to this, is a gun. People use a gun as a great equalizer, and it is. So if that had been today, maybe, I wouldn't have been held a hero. You didn't beat the guy. Well, right. Your boys, you let your boys, you go get a gun and shoot him. And then he comes and gets a gun, their boys come. And it's sort of like, without the dancing, it's like West Side Story. It really is a lot in poor areas. And what are they fighting over? Basically one of two things. Either money, because they don't have any, right? Or they don't have any access to it. Turf. And then the third thing is baby daddies or women. And look, Brian, you're sitting there smart, but if somebody attacked Ronnie, right?
You have to do it.
You would do something.
Well,
right?
that reminds me. I don't know if you remember this. You've heard about Alonzo Spellman. He was manic depressive. He was on a flight, and he got really belligerent. And a guy was sitting with his wife, and Spellman was saying something against his wife, and then there wasn't even a shot for the guy, and he had to decide what to do. He tried to be quiet, and I just hope I'm sitting next to Joe Tecklitz when it happens.
Now, see, Joe, if you're listening, he doesn't read. He can't read. He hasn't been able to read since 3 years old when he failed reading. But Joe, if you're listening, I use Joe as an example. Don't give me a gun as a teacher because I might shoot Joe. I definitely would have shot in Minnesota.
Joe's hands are about 1.5 feet long.
Yeah, Joe's a former defensive tackle. Could have gone pro.
Well, he did get drafted by the Colts, and he had a tryout with the Denver Broncos.
Joe Klecko,
he's just a little too slow.
Joe Klecko, who went on to play for the New York Jets and was an All-Pro. They were teammates and
good friend of Wayne Harden.
Every year, Tecklitz beat him out for best lineman.
Joe could take your head off.
Yeah, but
he just wasn't fast enough.
Now, so that kind of stuff. What I'm saying is, the only way I could do anything with Joe, or he's dead now, so I'll just say the deceased who knocked me out. Was to take a gun, but we didn't think of it then. It wasn't the way it was done, and now it is. Now, of course, we need psychiatrists and psychologists and sociologists and all that to decide what happened. And I think this happened. The NRA, I'll put the blame at their doorstep. They push more and more guns, right? It's about a money thing now. It's all about the money. They have the technology, and it's there. That a gun can be made so it only fires to your fingerprint. Now, besides all the other guns, it could be done. Chris Rock loved this. I don't know if you've heard it, Paul, since you're the one who brought guns up. He said, I can stop it tomorrow. So I can stop every gun killing on the street tomorrow. Charge $10,000 a bullet. You got to hate the motherfucker to waste $10,000 to kill him. And what we've done, we've made everything cheap. We give these weapons that we shouldn't have. The police in turn say, and I've heard this, and I think there's some truth to it, if you had an organized drug gang, a cartel-like thing, they're better armed than the police. That's one of the, but so the whole thing goes on. But it all comes back to, the things I say. I think it comes back to the economy a lot of times. And if the more unequal your economic system is, the more problems you will have. Paul, you and I like literature, and Brian, he reads them, but usually they're the kinds of things that you have to put the brown paper bag over. So it's a cover. He says he reads them for the articles, but you always see him folding them out like this. But I was thinking this whole COVID thing. I've been thinking a lot about Edgar Allan Poe's The Mask of the Red Death. Are you familiar with that? Mm-hmm. And you remember the rich people went to sequester themselves.
Right.
And death ended up there, right?
Oh, yeah.
I can't hide from it. And I think that talks about gun fears. I think, there's, so look, if everybody was relatively equal, you're still going to have crime, but nobody's going to need to break in, and take your stuff because they're going to have their own stuff. That's not, you don't wake up one day and say, you know what, I think I want to break into people's homes if you have all the stuff you need.
Speaking of tough guys, I'd like to just, I showed this earlier, Dave and Paul, but it was Rare Medium who posted this. The RNC, this is breaking news, and I assume that this is the breaking.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah, that it'll be split between North Carolina and Florida. So basically, you're going to have the convention in one place, and then Trump will be on this huge screen alone, so he doesn't have to deal with COVID on the others. What a hero he is.
Well, you know what? That is really, really interesting. Because if North Carolina said they want distancing, which they did, and they want masks, so what's Trump thinking? It'll just be on him and they won't show the distance. I mean, well, I don't know. What the fuck goes through his mind? I mean, what's wrong with that man? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, he just doesn't want to suffer at all, basically. So everybody else will suffer.
What's that? That's like, we're right back, guys. Not you. I'm not hounding you. I'm hounding anybody but Trump. I went to that bunker to inspect the bullshit. Maybe you didn't run there. That's I mean, I love calling him Bunker Boy. And then others people call him Bunker Bitch. I just know. Bunker Boy sounds cooler to me. But anyway, he didn't do that. He was probably told to go there and he went. But you don't have to lie about that. I said last show. Just say, look, I didn't really want to go, but the Secret Service does it. It's what we do with presidents. I went down there and I was telling him the whole time I'd like to get back out and I'd like to observe. That's all you have to do. But he can't do that. Now, at this convention, how does that work? He's not going to, what's the crowd going to be piped in? This whole idea. He's capitulated, he gives in, and he makes himself look weaker, except to his cult.
Absolutely.
And Brian, you and I can argue all day, and Paul, you can be the reasonable, rational one, which you are. But here's the thing. Where did we get the phrase drink the Kool-Aid from? Do you know, Brian?
Well, that's James Jones, obviously.
Right, and Jonestown. Mm-hmm. Now, that's the ultimate idea of a cult, right? Doesn't matter, you will die.
Well, I mean, it's a famous one, yeah. There's lots of other ones.
I mean, that's the idea of a cult. The person assumes, I've heard people say Christianity is a cult. That's not. But I could, no, it's too diverse. But a cult, this guy leads me, I'll do anything for him. If you look at all the things about, there are people that, will they die for Donald Trump? They say, I don't know, but it's up to that point. So, yeah, there's no logical reason. Look, I wrote something the other day. I don't know if it bears worth repeating, and of course, I'll shorten this for Gary. The last president, Republican president, was George Bush. George Bush is not voting for Donald Trump in November. If you're voting for Donald Trump, do you mean that Donald Trump was a better president than George Bush, who you probably voted for if you were a lifelong Republican? Mitt Romney, who's your last candidate who ran as a Republican and lost, said that he is not going to vote for Donald Trump. Does that mean that Donald Trump is a better Republican than Mitt Romney, who's been a Republican all his life? Colin Powell, who did vote for Hillary, so you could say that, but I'm looking at him as Secretary of State, that says not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. The generals, the list goes on and on and on. So don't tell me if you're a Trump supporter, you're a conservative, because George Will said not only should Donald Trump be defeated, everybody in the GOP party who had anything to do with him should go down. George Will is is far brighter than I will ever hope to be. George Will is a better writer on his worst day than I will be on my best day. And what really irks me is George Will is a better baseball fan than I am. he follows, so he's got this thing going. And he's not going to do it. The generals, we're not going to do it. Stormy Daniels, who had sex with Donald Trump, she's not voting for him. I'm not sure who Melania is going to vote for. We don't know. No, but that's what I'm saying. So show me Trump supporters. You're not a Republican. You're not a conservative. You don't want a strong army. You don't want to be a dominant power. What do you want? Why are you voting for Donald Trump? You're voting for Donald Trump because he'll protect your Christian religion? Okay. I think you took the Antichrist there, kids, but okay. You're taking Donald Trump because he's good for the economy? Don't think so. I hope every American understands what happened on that jobs report. Now they're looking at it was underreported by 6 points, right? It was closer to 20 than it was to the 13%. Right. And it's been acknowledged they made a mistake and they didn't correct it, and that's not so why? What are you voting for? What are you voting for? I mean, do you like him? What do you like?
George Prescott Bush here, where I made him say he's announced that he's voting for Trump.
Okay, and I'm going to say that George W. Bush and Laura Bush. Now, let's be honest, okay? Do you know how to be a president, Brian? I don't. Paul, do you? I wouldn't want the job. I'd be a terrible one. I hate authority. Love myself. Wow, would that be fucked up? But here's the thing. I know for a fact that George W. Bush knows more about being a president than George P. Bush, because you know why? George W. Bush was a president.
Right.
He was a Republican president. I could understand you dismiss it if it was a Democratic president. And he's saying, based on what I know about the presidency, and you know who's alive who knows as much as he does? Jimmy Carter, correct? Bill Clinton, correct? Barack Obama, George Bush, and Donald Trump. Did I miss anybody? 5, right? 5 living presidents. And 4 of them, the 4 have held the job, including one from your own party, is saying you're not a good president. You're not a good president. So are you going to tell me that 4 men, and I would understand if they were all Democrats, but they're not, very diverse, Jimmy Carter moral, Bill Clinton right there sleazing it up with Donald Trump, Barack Obama will go down and not because I say so. If we could live long enough, his legacy will only grow. And Jimmy Carter is the greatest ex-president in the history of the United States. Nobody even close. And they're all telling you, don't vote for this guy. Who is telling you to vote for him? Kid Rock, Ted Nugent,
Kid Rock,
and Scott. James Wood, the actor, maybe Clint Eastwood. Who are you going to vote for, kids? Well, you're going to vote whoever you choose, right? Not much of a choice as far as I'm concerned. You guys talk for me. I want to go show Paul my books. So, plus, I'll be right back.
Well, I'm going to catch my breath here, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't listen to Brian. He lies.
No, it really is a long arch to get to Dave's answers, ladies and gentlemen.
I like the way the show started, where Dave was drawing a parallel to the civil rights movement, what's going on today. I was hoping we could go into more of that. Instead, it's Trump, 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 Trump. I don't think most Americans care about where the damn convention's going to be, in all honesty.
As long as it's not in their hometown.
I think more Americans care about, am I going to have a job? Has my job been, has it disappeared forever?
Or I would say, am I going to lose my rights?
Am I going to lose my rights? Is there any alleviation of this horrible life that existence I've been facing over the last 10, 15, 20 years? And that's why they're out in the streets. And that's why they're going to continue to go out in the streets. This is not ending. We have to recall that the civil rights movement morphed into, or at least, well, it didn't quite, it went along with a great demand for civil rights for all. Martin Luther King's last
it is now.
Protest that he was involved in, this is where he was killed in the Lorraine Motel, on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, was he was there to support a sanitation strike, so even MLK himself believed that his message had to broaden from just seeking equal rights for African Americans to helping all Americans who were impoverished. And I believe that this is what's keeping this movement going right now. Yes, it's still about Black Lives Matter, and that definitely should not be lost. But at the same time, the people opposing Trump here, it's really also about where's our frickin' future? We're tired of this.
Well, that's what I was saying in the beginning, Paul, that I think it's more than the BLM. It's incorporating a lot of things, and that's why I said that we had to look at the tipping point, because there's more than just that. And then it's not only incorporated here in this country, now it's incorporated all over the world.
Exactly. In other words, many disappointments and anger on the part of people are not fully worked out, meaning they feel the anger. They feel that they've been denied certain things that they deserve, but they can't verbalize it. They can't quite draw it together like an analyst can. Okay, and I believe that the real source of dissatisfaction that is really bringing these people out into potentially dangerous gatherings and so on really has to do with the continued loss of a livable future for themselves and their families and their associates. That and a large feeling of decline, and pretty much a real reaction to privilege, because Trump just reeks of privilege. Trump and his Republican Party. The Republican Party is all about privilege, white privilege. I mean, they're all about it. Their country clubs and their stocks and their capital gains taxes,
gated communities,
and and these tariffs, and none of this filters down to to benefit the majority of the people, the 50% of Americans that are at poverty level or near poverty level. So we've got a lot of anger out there, and really the anger is non-verbalized. It's obvious to see cop brutality against African Americans. So, that's the start. But what's continuing to fuel that, in my opinion, is a lot of this general hopelessness that you see in people like Antonio, young people like Antonio. And it's totally understandable, this feeling of hopelessness. My God, if I was 26, I'd wonder, what the heck is this country going to,
Oh, Mr. Carter. I'm here, Brian.
All right, you're on the air.
That would have been a great shot. I actually sat there, and two things happened. I was so impressed with what Paul said, and the reason was I shut up and listened. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, you have to give you credit. You held out for 8 seconds.
No, it's a little bit longer than that. Not much.
Okay.
I was thinking, Paul, that when you were saying it's a bad analogy, I was trying to make it earlier. It's a horrible one, but that's never stopped me. If you subscribe to this theory I'm trying to work out, that as brutal and as vicious as the virus was, it made us, more understanding of what Black America goes through, that idea. Now what I think is happening, it's not quite the same, because Spartacus, of course, was a leader, but, that movie with Kirk Douglas. And remember, Paul, Brian likes gladiator movies for different reasons than you and I do. He shows them all the time. And this is true. That, Brian, you can deny it and you'd be a liar.
He saw an old video. He saw an old video with some non-copyrighted material that I put on, and he's never forgotten that.
He showed it 20 anyway. Remember the scene if you saw it, and they come to the Romans come to get Spartacus, and the Tony Curtis character stands up. I am Spartacus, right? And then everybody, I am. Well, all of a sudden, it strikes me in a very bad, analogous way that white people, especially Paul, as you so astutely pointed out, young people are saying, "Yeah, wait a minute, I'm Black Lives Matter too, not associating with Black lives, right? The worst thing that we say, one of the worst things we say, I don't see color. Do you know who doesn't see color? Blind people don't see color. What they're saying is, I can look beyond that. I see that I'm like you. My future, Paul, as you so aptly put it, is hopeless, like theirs. You know what I mean? And so instead of separating, which the Republicans try to do and hate groups try to do, they're saying, no, we're like that. And I think, do I want young people not to see a future? No, of course not. But you know how they see a future? They change it where they can, And one of the ways you can is vote against Donald Trump. Well, so Judy will be in here, and I don't respond to any person but her. So real quickly, Paul, you'd asked for this. Let's come in here. Now, this is the book that I picked up today, one of them. The NRA.
Interesting.
Now, I don't do many Trump impersonations, right? Everybody see this book?
Let's put you on full screen if you're going to do that.
No, you don't. Okay. Can you see the book?
Well enough.
Okay. And this is the way Trump would show it. Bible, upside down and backwards. Not a very good thing. So I have to get more knowledgeable, Paul, because you asked some very good questions tonight. So I'm hoping this book, and then I have one that I haven't read that's sitting there, Second Amendment put together, will put me in that. This one, I actually got on discount. Boy, did Judy holler at me because she knows how much I spent today. But anyway, this one, no, I'm sorry. That's not the one on discount. You talk about being surprised for being a reader. This book, it's not surprising. It's infamy, the shocking story of the Japanese-American internment in World War II. I was surrounded by Japanese growing up in my village who were in that camp, and nobody spoke of it. I didn't know about it till I got to college. So I want to learn more. But the more shocking thing to me is, how the hell did Richard Reeves, who's one of my favorite political writers, has been for years, since the 70s, how the hell did he write a book and I not know about it? That really, I'm laughing, but that really bothers me. So look, $7.98. I tried to explain to my wife, I saved a lot of money. This one comes back to Fight of the Century. Writers reflect on 100
years that's good.
Of landmark ACLU cases. And I usually don't do a who's who, but some of my favorite, right? Michael Chabon is in here. Michael Cunningham is in here. Jennifer Egan is in here.
So it's a group of essays, yeah.
Correct. Neil Gaiman is in here, and the list goes on and on and on. So I'm going to look at this for two reasons, about the cases themselves and see which ones I don't know about. But even more importantly, of course, as a writer, I can say, I wish I could write like him, do that. And again, I have to count out to my colleagues in journalism. This is a brand new book just out called Citizen Reporters, SS McClure, Ida Tarbell, and the magazine that rewrote America. They have to be careful with these books. Rewrote, well, maybe, maybe not. But I just want to read you this little thing on the front.
What was the magazine, by the way?
Hold on a minute. I want to keep everybody in suspense. I will tell you. I'll tell you right here. So, listen to this statement. You ready? Just on the cover. The President of the United States made headlines around the world when he publicly attacked the press, denouncing reporters who threatened his reputation as, quote, muckrakers and, quote, forces for evil. Sound like anything we know? The year was 1906. The president was Theodore Roosevelt, and his fury was aimed at McClure's magazine. One difference in the story. Later on, Roosevelt realized that they were right. Roosevelt was also a writer himself, right? And they went on. Tarbell, they were basically that period, Frank, where they had Upton Sinclair's writing, and they're changing all this. So this is after the robber barons, labor, that kind of thing. So I guess my point of that is, ladies and gentlemen, I spout a lot of opinions, but I know that they're just my opinions. Some of them are somewhat informed. Some of them I'm just messing with Brian. I like arguing with Gary. We have some good discussions. Peacock.
He's still there.
Yeah, I know he is. So Gary, shout out. You're supposed to be down here as soon as you get out of Jersey. But the idea of it is I would leave people with this. Your opinions are wonderful. You're entitled to them. But I would suggest two things if you hold an opinion. I always try to go. One is, if you voice an opinion, you should be able to back it up, is part of it. But the other part is expect criticism. I always find it interesting. Today, a person who I don't know what the hell has happened to her. She was the sweetest, most unassuming person. She's become very political, and looks like every day getting closer to Donald Trump. So this sweet little person, I guess, thinks she's not supposed to get attacked. Well, sorry, you're out there. You put your stuff out there, they're supposed to come back at you, right? That's what they're supposed to do. But you know how you avoid that? Know what you're talking about as much as you can. This is a talk show. We just talk, right? But if you're going to say, if I'm going to talk about something like we started tonight, Paul, about the Second Amendment and RA, I have opinions on it, but I got to go to this book. I got to go to the Second Amendment book I have. I have to look at it. One of the most misunderstood, and it drives me crazy, is the First Amendment in the Constitution. The Second Amendment, I would like to do that sometimes. The wording is horrible. So I can understand the confusion there. The First Amendment is pretty direct. So, and we talk about free speech, and everybody thinks they have free speech, right? We don't. Here's what
certainly not on this show.
Well, Paul has it and I have it. I just don't listen to idiots. So what happens is this. Brian, tell me what, okay. Brian, tell me what free speech means as specified in the First Amendment.
Well, I think what it's basically saying is that
I think it's as long as it doesn't.
You can complain against the government. I guess it was directed toward the government. If you had a complaint about the government, you had the right to complain about it.
You said one word wrong in that. Do you know what it was?
Maybe it was government.
No, guess. You don't guess. The freedom of speech applies only to this. The government may not punish you for anything you say against the government. Now, even there's some, but people believe, and you've heard it, and I've heard it. My students used to say it. Mr. Lawrence, we can say whatever we want. We got the right of free speech. Now, I guess you could make it interpreted that I was, but it'd be hard to do. No. So when people run around and say I have the right to say anything I want, no, you don't. We have libel laws when you write it. We have slander laws when you say it. The
Russian Constitution also has free speech.
Yeah.
See how well that works.
We've gotten around that but a lot of people say, you can't censor. Yes, you're not supposed to, but the government can't censor. All right. As much as I find it despicable what the NFL owners did to Mr. Kaepernick, I find two very interesting things. The first is whatever his motives, and I saw somebody put up before, whether it was money or not, Colin Kaepernick has been exonerated by his organization.
True.
When Goodell wrote that speech. Donald Trump called him a son of a bitch, and Goodell said, nope. Goodell stood up. He did what we ask all of us to do who are activists, speak truth to power. And he did it. Now, I'm sure, like I said, he may have done this. Winds are blowing, right?
And 60% of his players are African American.
They were before. Too.
Still, I'm glad he made the stance. Absolutely. He took the stance as quickly as he did.
Here's another goddamn thing my fellow liberals do. We won't let anybody come late to the damn party. We were there. I don't care when you come. Just get there, right? Just get there. He got there. The other thing is, I hear a lot, oh, it's sad. Mr. Kaepernick had his career taken away. Well, Mr. Kaepernick is going to be in the history books. I mentioned this last time, but it's true. Tom Brady, probably the best quarterback of my lifetime. Unless you're reading about people who married good-looking models or people who wore MAGA hats. He ain't making it. Drew Brees. Now, here's a big moment I didn't talk about before in sports. Drew Brees, who probably plays with a stature, he should be 75 feet tall. He's a little fella, right? And he doesn't. And he came out thinking he was saying the right thing, and maybe hadn't thought it out so well. He said, no standing. That's, you don't do this during the, you don't do it during the Pledge of Allegiance. And his own teammates jumped on him. And you know who jumped on him? Aaron Rodgers.
Rodgers did.
Aaron, if you're listening to me tonight, you're absolutely crazy. You had Olivia Munn as your girlfriend, and you walked away from Olivia Munn. Wow.
Dave, I think there's a 0.00001% chance that Aaron Rodgers is listening to us tonight.
I don't know that. He could be disguised as Gary Peacock.
Yeah.
Who the hell?
Could be a personal friend of Brian's.
Yeah.
You know?
Who knows? No, but my point is, quarterbacks don't criticize other quarterbacks about social stuff, right?
True.
And this new shit, look, a lot of stuff is inconceivable.
But sports stars.
Right.
I mean, how many of them are really enlightened? And entertainers. How many of them are really enlightened? I mean, we have to question that.
Oh, I think the ultimate maybe. But Paul, I'm gonna try something out here. It's my new theory. I always like to try them out. Michael Jordan. Okay, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, John Carlos, Tommy Smith.
I would also include LeBron.
I'm going to get to LeBron in a moment. They were activism, right? It was pretty easy to be an activist. Well, not really. Muhammad Ali lost the prime of his career. John Carlos and Tommy Lee Smith had their medals ripped off.
Mexico.
Bill Russell was almost killed numerous times by white racists in Boston. So it wasn't as easy to think, but it was a little bit easier. Then we went through this period where money, and Michael Jordan, I've never met the gentleman. I think he's a great...
He could be listening tonight.
No, he's not. Aaron could be.
Yes.
I kind of hoping Olivia was. I don't give a shit about Aaron. But the idea of Michael Jordan is, Michael Jordan, and you remember his famous quote, or maybe you don't. They always said to Michael, why aren't you more political? He said, Republicans buy sneakers too.
Right.
All right? But then came along...
Charles Barkley is kind of...
Yeah, he gets political.
Well,
and he's a Republican. He's a
Yeah,
good Republican.
Yeah, he's a Republican, but he's also black. I mean, that's not a bad gig if you get it. A black Republican from Alabama, they'll run you for governor. You're thinking, oh my God, we get the whole kit and caboodle here. And Charles is just Charles. Charles, I ain't be a role model for nobody. Well, you are, Charles, but I love Charles Barkley. He's a Sixer. But the one I want to talk about, like you said, LeBron comes up, and LeBron James changes the idea a little bit.
He changes lives. I love LeBron James.
Of course. And of course, you're an Ohioan, so you would say that. But LeBron, no.
People into Akron.
He's done everything.
University.
LeBron James, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a young
one of the greatest Americans right now, unappreciated, is LeBron James.
If you want a role model, Charles has already said he doesn't want to be it, right? I mean, he said that. Michael, if you want to be a great basketball player, the only thing is, and I'm not making fun of you, Michael, because you could beat me, on my best day, on your worst day. But you got to hang your tongue out. Because if you ever watch Michael, he plays with his tongue out. The reason I know that, my son started doing it, and he still does it. To this day, he plays basketball with his tongue out like Michael Jordan. But you want somebody to really do it. Now, all of a sudden, right? Then Colin Kaepernick, and they always forget Eric Reed, who was the guy from
San
Francisco, who took the knee. And people don't get this, and I love it because they just look at that. Now, I'm glad nobody listens to me. I really am, because I guess I give really bad advice. If Colin had asked me, what should you do? I would have said, do this, right? The Black Power, for two reasons. One is you're not taking a knee, so you're standing up, and you're reminding people of, 68. But no, he actually went to somebody better. He went to a decorated veteran, a white veteran, and talked to him. And he said, can I do this? Basically, he said, I don't want to take a stand against the flag or America other than saying black people like myself are not treated fairly, right? And he took that knee and that knee and that knee and that knee. For the hell we talk about taking a knee. Last time you talked about taking a knee, you were being knighted by the Queen somewhere, right? And this became a symbol. And now suddenly, whether you like it or not, a group of Democratic senators, maybe, and I attacked them for this a little bit. I understand their motives were good, but I don't know. They kind of appropriated the African shawl, but took a knee to show, that kind of thing. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is my last remark, and I'm gonna do a mic drop. And probably everybody who's here, Olivia, if you're there, please call me. I hadn't thought about her for a while, She is one talented woman. She was. Do you familiar with her at all? She was on Newsroom. Oh,
no, who's Olivia?
Olivia Munn, Aaron Rodgers' ex-girlfriend. Nothing against Giselle, nothing against Tom Brady's, but she's kind of that model type. Olivia is a real living, breathing actress. She's very, very good. But anyway.
Olivia, if you're watching, call Dave. Number is.
And Hillary, don't call me.
Oh, I think she's calling now.
Is that Hillary? Okay. No, not Hillary. Who do I want to call? Melania. I don't care.
Wait, Dave Stormy's calling.
Yes.
At the same time. Now you got a problem.
Somebody call me. God damn it. Even Pamela Sue Anderson Lee. I don't care.
Wouldn't you know? They both have to fucking call at the same time.
I don't want to go into great personal detail, but that's happened on more than once. And in person, okay? Another show we'll talk about.
It always works that way, I hear.
But you know, leave kind of a joke. If you are somebody who is debating between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I'm not going to say, you know, whatever. I'm just going to ask you this. All things being equal, I can reject Donald Trump in the two ways that you can reject a president. I can reject him because he's a bad president, and I can reject him because he's a bad man. Now, I don't know what kind of president Joe Biden is going to make, but I know that he's a better human being than Donald Trump. And all things being equal, what little bit I know about leadership, and I don't follow them often, but what I do follow, I will follow, and I think it's worked for me, it will work for you. I follow the better person, right? You're never going to find the perfect person. Next show, maybe we'll go back, Brian, Ryan, whatever the hell your name is. We'll go back and visit, which changes every day, who Biden should pick, you know, and as his vice president. And certainly I want to review some of the remarks I made. Although, Brian, if you look today, mine were held out. I said it would be Whitmer, and they said, she destroyed herself. I always thought it would be Whitmer, and apparently that's who it was. But now they have to rethink in light of, you know, what's going on. It almost becomes you have to have an African American there, probably. Just not just for symbol or show, you know. That's the thing. And I said this. So ask yourself about it. And the second thing is actions. People, if you don't want Donald Trump to be president, you got to do more. I mean, voting is the most important thing, but you have to do more because Brian is absolutely 100% right. Donald Trump and the GOP and the Russians and who knows who else is going to try to steal this election from you. Even if you're voting, even think about this. Even if you're voting for Donald Trump, if Donald Trump or the party can steal what's to stop the next election from being stolen by the other side? And nobody ever stops to think about that, rarely, right? They're so partisan. And I think that's the scary thing. You know, that's sometimes why you have to stop it, even if it's not in your best interest, because it might be right now, but it won't always be. So listen, gentlemen, as always, it's been fun. I want you two to continue. Brian, this is not the night. Paul, I don't know if you caught it the other night. We did a 3-hour show. This is going to be under that by 15 minutes.
By 11
if you guys want to talk a little more tomorrow,
no. I'm done. I'm talked out till at least, I need about a 15-minute break.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
What I was going to say is, I did tell this, and Paul, you're welcome to come that night or come in. I think, not because I think you said LeBron James. I think Bruce Springsteen is one of the best living Americans, too, from my estimation. Jersey boy, but that. And at 2 years older than I am, so it would have been, 3 years ago, right? 3 years ago, last tour. He did the longest show of his career. He's known for doing long shows. Two groups known for doing long shows. Grateful Dead were one. Springsteen was the other. He did, and I believe some Springsteen fan will tell me if I'm wrong, but he set the record. It was like 4 hours and 16 minutes. And he said it like at 67 years old. So I told Brian, when I get the number, if it's 4 minutes and 16, I want to do a 4 hour and 17-minute show.
We'll do
I just
that
want to meet Bruce
on
by
November the
minute.
3rd if we have to. There.
I think you can do it, Dave.
Stormy, if you're out there, if anybody knows Stormy Daniels, please tell her I was asking about her. Olivia, like Paul and Brian have kind of crushed my dream. They said,
I think she likes you.
no, that doesn't happen. But you know who doesn't like me if I keep her up? And remember, ladies and gentlemen, I've told you this, but it is true. This is my fancy studio. I can turn around and show my keyboards here, my writing thing. But really, this is the bedroom I share with my wife of 47 years. And she was kind enough to give this to me. But when she is tired, and we've already had that one drag-out battle today, so I want to... her.
Who won?
Judy cried more, you think. Which I don't
You made your wife cry? Oh, my God. That's a terrible argument.
Yeah, nah, she was... No. I think, all joking aside, at the end, we both admitted we were wrong, which is the only way you stay married. You know, unless, you know, and it was. We were both wrong. And you know who I blame for the argument?
Me.
No. Paul, you want to guess?
Trump.
Or me.
There you are. Night, night. Donald Trump is breaking up my marriage. If you like me, vote against Donald Trump. Read some books. Listen to Paul. Do not listen to Brian. I'm out.
Yay, Dave. Why don't we end the show, Brian? And you and I can chat for
I want to say thank you to those of you who have held out till the end. I feel like I've gone through a marathon. That's why I have the heavy breathing going on in the background. But
Dave's
Paul,
energy is remarkable, really. Not just for his age, but any age, I think.
Right. He,
you know, he put in a lot of energy here tonight, and you know that's got to be appreciated.
Yeah.
And we appreciate it, Dave. We know you're still eavesdropping.
Yes.
So good job.
He's still there, but that's all right. He's just waiting for me to say something so he can jump back in. He just doesn't trust me. He just doesn't trust me, you know. So,
Dave, you got Brian all paranoid.
Okay.
The nation is under siege.
Yes, the nation is under siege, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank my two good friends.
Well, it's been a
Paul,
pleasure.
I appreciate you coming on.
Me join your show, and we haven't run any reality reports lately, but we will again. I just think right now the main topics are what's going on in the country. Right. You know, a lot of protests, and does tend to be a little bit more politically oriented right now.
And a few of the reality report people know that, and they're coming over here. And then, of course, Dave. I thank Dave. So we'll try to get the timing right. Paul, I did get a hold of you a little bit earlier. I don't know if you were just coming back or.
This is my first day after three nights of work, and I had so much to do.
Right,
I still got stuff to do, and
right.
You know.
So, all right. So those of you who watch this show, I assume will be on Tuesday. Should be a good enough day, and hopefully the world won't suffer too much between now and then. And again, thank you.
I suppose Dave's willing to do it tomorrow. Are you free?
Tomorrow. It's funny. We're talking about a 4-hour marathon. I feel like I'm doing this every
Brian,
day.
you always wanted to be on every night.
Well, I don't mind being on every
That's
night.
the
It's
force
just
of nature, otherwise known as Dave Price.
I have to hear Dave.
Keep the show going.
I have to say,
you conserve your energy.
There was a nice battle between Dave and Gary Peacock. Gary essentially said,
Brian, you're not going to be a fight promoter.
Gary was saying, you give us a history lesson for 18 minutes.
You got to step into the ring as yourself. You're not Tex Rickard here. Okay?
I like to see Dave's face when somebody makes a comment against him, especially when it's a friend like Gary Peacock. So if you go back and see the show again,
I'll tell you exactly what Dave does. All right? He puts his hat on backwards and he says, Gary, I love you like a brother I never had. And Brian, That's why you don't get it. It's not personal, man.
No, I know. It's just that blank look you get for like 5 seconds, and you're just waiting to say the.
No, well, what it is, Brian, I'm astounded, really. How can I say this? I'm astounded that anybody would disagree with anything I said. Like tomorrow, if I came out and said Donald Trump is the best president, well, then everybody who's against him should be for him. I mean, I have that kind of power. Can we hurry it up, guys? Judy's coming. Come on. We got to stop this thing. I got to act like I'm out of here.
All right, that is the cue for us to stop.
Well, we got to get Gary on the show then, Brian.
No, I did ask Gary. Gary, Gary, if you're out there, Gary said he'd be willing if he came over the house. But, we have pandemic here now. I told Gary, do it on your iPad, but he doesn't want to do it that way. He'd rather just make his comments, and that's his choice, his prerogative. But Dave and Gary have been going at it for a long, long time. Good friends, both liberal, but they go at it, and I just thought it was funny because, I mean...
We got Brian.
Oh, my God! I mean, I got to find those comments again. I don't even know
if you consider 1968 a long time. That's when Gary and I joined together. And
basically, you're not allowing Gary over to your house, Brian? Because of COVID?
Gary is supposed to live with Dave. Okay? See, look at this comment from Gary. A history lesson? I'll tune back in an hour.
Hey, Gary, you're not hiding Olivia Munn from me, are you? Come on, man. If you've got Olivia, let me know, man. Come on.
Yeah, he had some other zingers in here, Dave. Here's a statistic. 18 minutes.
No, I've gone a lot longer than that.
No, you have. You have, but...
Not in certain ways, but with speaking, I could go shit.
I mean, this show has to be dedicated to Gary Peacock because...
Look, I can't think of anybody better to dedicate it to.
Yes. So, in dedication to Gary Peacock and
Shut
his
the goddamn thing down.
Comments.
Are you addicted to airtime?
Here's a statistic, 18 minutes. And he was a good friend with... Robert Hedges from Welcome Back, Kotter. So.
And by tangentially, John Travolta. And Gary knows a lot of Hollywood people. Gary was an actor himself.
That's right.
Unlike you, Brian.
No, I'm the real deal. I'm not acting.
Shut the damn thing off, will you? I'm trying to get you to shut it off. I'm going to... Oh, wait a minute. I already did filibuster. What else can I do? I don't know.
All right, I am going to shut off now. So thank you, everybody. I can't believe you were able to handle this for this amount of time. So,
are you still talking? End the damn show, Brian.
As they say in Russia, paka paka.
Yeah, caca to you too.